Oh yeah. Adam.
Oh wait, yeah, let me do that. Sorry.
Oh, and Evan. Ah, so much.
Oh yeah. Adam. Oh wait, yeah, let me do that. Sorry. Okay, we are live.
Oh, and Janice when you get a chance.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, and Alicia. Okay. Wow. Okay, we got 11 people. Cool. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. I call this meeting to order at 7:02. Okay, and we'll go ahead just get kicking off. So let's get, are there any amendments to the agenda? Please raise your hand. Okay, Megan.
I would like to motion to add an appointment stay for Tommy Contreras, who is being appointed or is interviewing for the appointment of Academic Senate Undergraduate Council.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I second.
Perfect.
Okay, Megan motions, Anna seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. So sorry, lower your hands first. Okay, we'll have everyone lower. Eva, lower your hand. Okay, cool. Okay, so all in favor, please raise your hand. Someone in the attendees is raising their hand. Oh, that's Tommy. Okay, never mind. Okay, so we have 9, 4. Okay, please raise your hands. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, all against, please raise your hand. Okay, so 9-0 vote, and that is approved. So we'll go ahead and add that to the agenda. Thank you, Megan. Okay, now back to, are there any other amendments to the agenda? I think Alicia had her. Alicia, go.
Okay, can I strike art allocations? And can I also move to add 2 resolutions? Do I have to do independent motions for that or just one for all?
Two motions for that one.
Can I do, okay, so can I move to approve the resolution in support of the LGBTQIA community after discriminative Supreme Court ruling first?
Can I have a second?
A second.
Oh, okay. Alicia motions, Jenna seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand.
And if anyone would like to co-sponsor to have it, please do so. I'm gonna link it in the chat.
Okay. Please lower your hands. Please lower your hands. Still. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. All against, please raise your hand. Okay, 9-0 vote. That is approved to be on the agenda now. Okay, and then
I'm gonna
Oh.
Lisa, I'm gonna change it so that it's viewable. It's only viewable.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Okay, while we're doing that, Lisa, do you want to go ahead and motion for the next one?
Yes. I move to apply the resolution in support of affirmative action against the Supreme Court's ruling to terminate equitable college admissions onto the agenda.
A motion, anyone second?
A second.
Oh my God, who was that? I'm sorry. Was that Megan?
That was me.
At least your motions. Megan seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, please lower your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, please raise your hand, and then all against, please raise your hand. Okay, 8-1-0 votes. That is going to be added onto the agenda, and then Alicia, I think you're gonna link it. Same thing. Okay, cool. All right. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Tara.
I wanted to add a discussion item, perhaps, I don't know how long, but just to generally talk about the presentation that Ryan is supposed to give to council on the CRC and the SIOC.
Oh, like in, okay, yeah, we can do that.
Thank
So
you.
discussion.
You say that again?
So
Just
discussion. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
just a general discussion about the presentation that Ryan is supposed to give on the CRC and the SIOC, and I guess just general USAC relations with the MO coalition.
Okay. Perfect. So that'll be added. And then Janice.
Sure, initial face. Hi. Could you strike the SWC programming fund from the agenda, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Eva.
Can we please strike the Bruin Advocacy Grant?
Yes.
Okay. And one sec. Evan, go ahead, and I'll just get to that in a sec, Jessica.
Yeah, can we strike TGIF, please?
All right. Sujana.
Can I strike ASRF and TGIF allocations, please?
Yep. Okay. Lucy. Oh, hi.
Hi, could I strike capital contingency and contingency programming, please?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And Sarah.
For the two resolutions added, I believe for bylaws, do we not need like a week for them to be approved to the agenda? I just think that because the issues are, one, for the bylaws, and two, because the issues are really important, we should have more notice for giving them to the public so we can have a broader discussion and more people would come to council if they wanted. And also
For the week, it's with the Constitution for the week prior, but generally with the agenda, yes, it should be on there. It should be on the agenda so people have students, the student body has a week to review it. But due to matters, and we kind of just voted on having them on the agenda, I would proceed with them. But Alicia, if you want to add more, go ahead.
Yeah, because the one about the LGBTQ discrimination happened on Friday, like the decision by the Supreme Court, and the affirmative action one happened on Thursday. So it was quite a limited amount of time to like add it a week prior. And yeah, like I did a lot of the writing myself, and that was kind of hard with like other jobs and stress too. Like that was like hard to process also. So I'm sorry I couldn't do it a little bit earlier, but it was hard to do that like a week earlier as well, just because of the timeline. But in the future, I totally understand.
And I think
There is one more amendment that I'm gonna make. So we're gonna go ahead and add a discussion on introducing the budget. Yay! Hope y'all saw my email. But yeah, we'll go ahead and do that, and then let me provide a link in the chat as well with the document. And then Megan, you want to go ahead while I find that link? Or
we, in relation to the resolutions, we can also do like, we don't have to vote today. If we need more time as well, we can always like move it to, we can always like read it today and then like vote on it next meeting if needed. But I'm not sure if, oh, we can talk about it later.
Okay. Okay, my internet's acting slow, so I will get y'all the link later, but if we can just reference to everyone's individual one that they have when I sent it earlier in the email. So yeah, we'll be good there. Okay, cool. Last call for amendments to the agenda before we go ahead and approve it. Okay, well, it's good. Okay, so let's go ahead. Can I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I move
Yes,
to
go ahead.
approve today's agenda. The agenda
I'll
for
second that.
Okay, so Jenna motions, Jenna seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. All right, all abstaining, please raise your hand. And all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 11 to 0 to vote, today's agenda is approved, so perfect. All right, we can get it going. Okay, so let's do approval of the minutes. So I hope everyone had a chance to take a look at those. This is going to be from June 20th, our last meeting. So can I have a motion to approve the June 20th meeting minutes?
I motion to approve.
Jonathan motions. Can I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Jonathan motions, Alicia seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. All right. Please lower your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hand. And then all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 11 to 0 vote, our minutes are approved from June 20th. Perfect. Thank you all. Okay, so now we'll be opening up public comment at 7:14. This is just a time for the community to come with any questions, comments, or concerns, and just an opportunity for us to hear people out. Is there anyone here from public comment in our participants? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, so we don't have anybody for public comment, so we'll be closing it at 7:15. Okay, moving on. So let's go straight into funding. So, okay, SFS allocations. Do we have any?
I believe Jia Ying is unable to come because she's at work. I'm not sure if she sent a proxy. Is there anyone in the attendees who's a proxy for Community Service Commission?
Okay, we'll take that as a no. So there are no allocations for SFS allocations. Moving on to the next one. Oh, that's it. So, okay. So now we'll be moving into our special presentation. Eva.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'll try to keep this short at like 10 minutes. So I'm presenting, or wait, Megan, can you either you screen share or can I screen share?
I will make you a co-host so you can screen share.
Okay.
Hey, let me know if that works.
Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. I cannot see where I can hit present. Okay, there we go. So I'm presenting on UCSA's campaign goal ideas that the EVP office has had, just through some like preliminary discussions we've had with like organizations throughout campus. And I kind of wanted to have this as like a moment in time where you could like let me know if any of the following ideas that we have are like solid, or if you have any other ideas that you'd want to contribute after I briefly overview what UCSA and our campaigns are. So UCSA is essentially the statewide board of the EVPs. So there's like each EVP at each UC is like a voting member of UCSA. They appoint up to 4 people from their campus to join the board as non-voting members. These are folks who are referred to as legislative directors or organizing directors. And together, all of us attend monthly board meetings where we discuss UC-wide advocacy. Our participation in UCSA is pretty cool because it allows me to make friends with other UCs and other people on other campuses. But also it's really our like vehicle for communicating with the UC Office of the President, the UC Regions, as well as other system-wide committees. So very cool. So UCSA has 5 campaigns, and they choose a certain goal for each of the campaigns every year. And so there are these 5 campaigns, and I'll go over them in the next few slides. And the goals for these campaigns are selected at a conference every August. It's called the Student Organizing Summit. And there's a sign-up link if you're interested in attending at the end of the presentation. And it's linked, I think I linked it, yes. So I'll quickly overview what the campaigns are and some goals that we have. So the first campaign is the Acquire campaign. It's a campaign for quality resources, basically, at the UCs. So this focuses on retention, mental and physical health services, academic accommodations, honestly, like anything can fall into this bucket. And last year, under the Acquire campaign, we lobbied to increase funding for disability specialists to, increase the ratio of individuals who could help students with disabilities on campus. Specifically, I think the ratio is like supposed to be like 1 to 500 students, but it's like way worse than that. So that's what we were lobbying for. The second campaign is the Students Enacting Environmental Defense, or the SEED campaign. This is kind of an environmental campaign. Last year, our campaign goal was the divestment from the 30-meter telescope on Mauna Kea. This was the presentation for the resolution that we had, or like the resolution that was presented at USAC, like before we left after spring quarter. So that's kind of what we were doing there. And the third campaign is the Racial Justice Now campaign. It's historically focused on things like police accountability and divestment, immigrant justice, things like that, really ensuring that there can be better retention and recruitment in higher education for underrepresented communities. And last year, the campaign goal there was the Opportunity for All campaign. All right, let me go to the next slide. Oh shit, I literally skipped 2 slides. Hold on. Give me 1 sec. There we go. The fourth campaign is the Fund the UC campaign. It's like a financial aid, basically, financial well-being for students. And the fifth campaign is the UC We Vote campaign, which is a civic engagement minded campaign. And last year, the goal of that was kind of a flop, which is why I wanted to talk to y'all about choosing better campaign goals this year. So we'll get into it. These are just some ideas that like my office has had so far. This from our discussions with other organizations, but obviously, as I mentioned, I'm bringing this to y'all to really get your gears turning and see if there's any ideas that y'all want us to advocate for as the campaign goals that UCSA prioritizes, and they'll be lobbied for to the state. So super important. So for the Acquire campaign, we're thinking of continuing the goal of funding for more disability specialists at UCs. We could also do like a safe parking initiative to fund like public universities, delegating us parking like structure level to students who sleep in their cars at night. If we wanted it to be a UC-wide thing, kind of unsure how that would work. We could also increase funding for nurses who are trained in testing survivors of SA. as well as potentially like sustainable labor and like condemning companies that the UCs contract with who have existing labor violations. These are just some goals that we've had ideas for. For the seed campaign, we're thinking of increasing like free and equitable transportation to hospitals for survivors of SA. So really ensuring that transportation is carbon neutral, and that can just be like infusement of state or federal funding to public transportation around college universities or UCs or just general public universities in California. The third campaign for RJN, we're thinking of continuing the opportunity for all goal in the office. It probably will get approved by the UC Regents at the November Regents meeting. So after that, maybe we could pivot to things in light of the recent Supreme Court cases about affirmative action. We're unsure. This is a developing situation. Just again, some goals we've had. The fourth campaign goal, we're thinking of making Fund the UC kind of like an affordable housing sort of campaign where potentially we're looking at like what can we do to essentially lower the cost of living on UC campuses. Or another idea we've had, maybe doing like a universal meal plan thing, so mitigating food insecurity on campuses. And the fifth campaign, UC We Vote, which is a civic engagement minded one, we're thinking of having that kind of be like I guess getting election day to be a national holiday, but this is probably the like least developed idea and least developed campaign out of all the five. But I do want to stress that it's important that we are very present in deciding what goals UCSA decides to pursue this year, just because this will be pretty much on the forefront of any legislative agenda that the EVP office uses to go lobby to any likely state elected official. And that being said, it's also going to be probably at the forefront of what the UC Student Association communicates with UC President Drake and other UC admin. So choosing these goals is pretty important, and your feedback is encouraged. So because this is like a special presentation, I think we're going to save like comments for the end, but just start thinking about what ideas you have. And if you want to continue this discussion at UCSA, where they actually decide what the campaign goals are, you can go to the presentation, which is linked on the agenda, and you can sign up to attend the Student Organizing Summit on August 4th through 6th. It's in person in Pomona. And there we'll do like ranked choice voting and deciding the campaign goals for the 5 campaigns I just quickly overviewed. If you are interested in attending, also please fill out the when to meet because that's where I'll be using like the EVP delegation like signups to like plan and just go over details and to collectively decide what goals we want to lobby for there. And we may be able to cover like most of your travel, absolutely no flights because we are not made of money. But depending on the number of signups, we're looking to cover hotels and food. So all expenses paid pending signups and the budget, really how that looks. But I really encourage you all to attend if you're interested. And so that concludes my presentation. So I really am interested in hearing what potential campaign goals you would want EVP to advocate for at this conference. So I think I'm allotted like a 5-minute question period. So I would love to hear any thoughts you have, and I am happy to clarify anything further. Also, sorry, that was so discombobulated. I like just got home, so doing my best. But please, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so Tyra asks, how do we contribute to goals? Do you mean like how do we decide the goals, or do you mean like how do we advance the goals to implementing them?
I mean, like, are we able to put forth goals for consideration for UCSA?
Yeah, you definitely are.
Right now is that time, or like, do I follow up with you after?
I would love if you could like share it like briefly out loud now, and then definitely follow up with me after as well. And uh then if you're interested in attending SOS, that's definitely like the main platform where you would um like suggest that goal. But if you weren't able to attend it, then like you would, I guess, you have to communicate with me, and then I would advocate for it at SOS.
Okay, cool. I'm still understanding like how USAC and UCSA kind of work hand in hand together, but considering what we lobbied for at Transfer Day, I feel like I'm on the right track. But just off top of my head, I definitely think that we should be advocating for more transfer specific research and like related support services at the UC system. There really aren't too many initiatives kind of on transfer research, which is kind of confusing. And it kind of makes TSRs have no like backing for the different things that we're advocating for because there is no research. And okay, so I won't get into that. I'll get off the soapbox. But that also something that I recognize that is largely missing, which I feel like is important for us as a UC system to be engaging with, is California reparations. How do we kind of advocate for that? What does that look like in the academic setting, particularly for Black students throughout the UC system, considering what's been happening with the Supreme Court? I do think education, a better educational system that supports Black students is a form of reparations. It doesn't have to be monetary. The UC institutionalization of Puente and Yamoja programs, but also the institutional acknowledgement of Juneteenth. And so those are just some few things that I like thought of just off top. So I'll probably have more to consider for later, but I'll just reach out to you. And thank you again for the presentation, for letting us be involved in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm taking notes on what you said. So I think like transfer specific research and like retention would definitely fall under the like acquire campaign. So I'd love to follow up with you and see more like what you think that would look like. And then like California reparations, or more rather like a better education system for Black students as a form of reparation. That could be like a racial justice now campaign goal. So I really like that. And then we could have like for Juneteenth, you mentioned it at the end there. I didn't fully catch what you said, but I could imagine that being like kind of how we want, like, I guess, like no classes on Juneteenth, like a day off from the university. I guess that's like what I think. I don't know if that's what you said, but like I could imagine that also being like a racial justice now, or the RJN campaign goal as well. So I'd love to like follow up with you when we meet later this week. And then Evan.
Yeah, you have a great presentation. I just had maybe a thought for the seed campaign. I know that's something that we've talked a lot about in the past. So I think like one of the things that maybe I'd want to flag or maybe look into. So California spends a lot of money on freeway widening and widening in underserved communities and communities that have already, borne the brunt of what freeways like can kind of do. So for anybody who doesn't know, if you live within a proximity to a freeway, you have things like childhood asthma, lung disease, lung cancer, all these things are much more high end, and cases up to like 70% more likely and more prevalent in these areas. And these are also communities that tend to be low income and minority. So I think that there was a bill in the California State Senate. It died, but it would be, it's very much so about environmental racism and kind of that intersection. So there was like a bill that was going to be proposed and that died in the Senate, but I think it could be interesting maybe to look into. And it was going to propose that you couldn't like widen freeways in underserved communities. And there's like a lot of different like benefits that this has. So like LA County, for instance, they're designating $18 billion over the next 10 years for freeway widening. Just think about like what we could do with that amount of money, except like instead of putting this towards like, the most polluting sector in the entire like economy. Like it's just kind of crazy. Like you could put all that money to public transportation, put that money into these communities that do have to face like these terrible consequences. So I think that's something that I would definitely recommend looking into. That's something that my office is looking into. So that could be something interesting. And just think like that's just LA County. So like UC system wide, we're all in these cities that like require and put so much money towards these forms of transportation that just pollute so much and cause so much harm to communities. So I think that could be something that would be at least my thought to look into for that seed campaign.
Yeah, I'm loving that public transit, and like I think environmental justice is definitely something that I'd love for that to kind of pivot to as well. So I took that down as a potential seed campaign goal. And then Sejana, your hands up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think Tyra may have touched on this a bit, mentioning the Supreme Court, but given the recent affirmative action decision, which I know we're going to be able to discuss later, I think that's a really like salient issue for UCSA to be involved in, whether that looks like organizing like a lawsuit, like an actual legal challenge on the state level, kind of how, the more institutional like challenges go. I think that would be super beneficial. I think lobbying is also really valuable too, but I think organizing a legal challenge would be super, super like tangible and would be really effective, especially if all the UC's representatives were together on that. So that's some idea I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely love that. I think I can definitely, based on what I like the conversations I've been having with other EVPs, if opportunity for all isn't the campaign goal, or like if the regents like do affirm like their goal, then RJN would probably pivot to affirmative action, because I think that's like what, at least in like the circles I've been hearing, like that's definitely like a big sticking point right now. So I definitely would love to also like further discuss like what that could maybe look like, whether that's like restricting legacy based admissions, or like HSI stuff like on each UC that qualifies, like things like that. I think like I would love to discuss further as well. And then Alicia, your hands up too. Wait, Alicia, can you hear me?
Oh, thank you. I was like, wait. Oh, okay. Thank you for presenting. That was such a good presentation. And I think I will go. With the issues that I bring up briefly right now, I would say is 5 out of 9 UCs and probably 6 now that UCLA is becoming an HSI soon, are HSIs. But I still feel like the university doesn't, the UC doesn't really do enough to, I guess, involve students who identify as Hispanic or Latina in the, like, I guess, the resources that are funded because the school is an HSI. So I feel like that's an important thing to talk about, especially in light of UCLA becoming one and us not getting transparency from the HSI initiative here as to how those fees are going to be spent and how those students are going to be supported. And especially like some of the most marginalized Hispanic students, which are some are transfers, some are commuters, some are, have dependents, immigration, and all these other, what's it called, issues within it. Yeah, so that's one of them. And then 2 is like cops off campus. I think that's a really important thing that hasn't been talked about recently enough. Because I feel like in some campuses more than not, like a lot of like us specifically too, like there's just been a lots of institutional efforts to suppress students, workers, and activists. I saw a lot of cops during like a lot of like political action last year. And with police budgets growing and like tripling, like that was a question at the candidate debates as well. Like it's really important issue to talk about because with these police departments growing, like students, especially like the students I mentioned, Black students, other students of colors, and activists in particular are like being like more targeted than ever. So yeah, I know you like understand this, the weight of this, but but I just wanted to bring it up so that we could follow up and maybe talk about those initiatives. Thank you.
No, yeah, awesome. I wrote the like HSI fees under RJN. But it honestly could also go under choir, I think, depending how we wanted to pivot it. And then I agree, I think like co-ops off campus and like abolishing UCPD has very much, it's been very quiet on that front recently. I think that's really messed up and honestly says a lot about us and student leaders, I think, like forgetting. But I think like police brutality definitely has not gone away. So I think that would definitely also be an RJN campaign goal. I think it was the RJN campaign goal a couple years ago. I don't actually know why we pivoted away from it. It might have been due to some like institutional blocks, but I think if I could I want to look into why it was like no longer pursued starting 2 years ago, I think it was. I think it was the campaign goal 3 years ago, but I could so be wrong. I think I might be getting the timeline a little muddled there. But I think seeing what like UC's opposition was, I think would be a point of my research and seeing what we could do to like get the ball rolling, at least with like defunding UCPD. And I think also making it a statewide issue because UCPD is a statewide entity. So I definitely love that. And I wrote that down as well. And Jonathan?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for presenting so much. I wanted to just hop on what Alicia had mentioned, in particular with the HSI. I think given that Latinx and Hispanic people are now the majority in California, but aren't represented adequately in all steps of the UC, not just within the institutions themselves, but also within administrators, within the people in charge. I think that's kind of a whole push. I think potentially advocating, for a UC-wide HSI initiative, given that majority of the UCs are now going to be HSIs, making that more of a priority in terms of recruitment and retention. Just to make sure to like ensure that the Hispanic Latinx population are being adequately supported. I think, kind of trying to lean into the UC in terms of maybe a potential bilingualism, given that Spanish is a very present language, not only within the state itself, but also within the people who work at the UC, the people who, are involved in ensuring our education is accessible, or our facilities are well maintained. I think that's something that has to be continued to push, because linguistic challenges has not been talked enough, but unfortunately that tends to be a struggle for a lot of people. So I think kind of pushing for the UC to adopt the sort of bilingualism, given that it is the premier educational structure here in the United States, it should be a model and ultimately cater to all of those, including those who don't necessarily speak English fluently. But yeah, I think that would be something important to advocate for and mention further in the meeting.
No, yeah, I definitely love that. I wrote that down. I kind of while I was hearing you speak, I moved HSI, like my notes, to like kind of being an acquire campaign. I really love the idea of a UC-wide HSI initiative, and like focusing on recruitment and retention, I think is definitely very like easy sell for that to be like a campaign goal of UCSA's, especially with affirmative action too. I think that like plays in. So and I also really love the point about Spanish, like bilingualism. It's something I hadn't even considered, and I'd love to hear more like what like policies you think that we could pursue with that. I really love that idea. And thank you all so much for sharing these ideas. Just again to reiterate, I'm basically taking your ideas. I'm gonna workshop them with EVP and see, make sure that we can like forward these ideas at the Student Organizing Summit. To really just make sure that what we're doing as part of the UC-wide, UCSA is really representative of what UCLA wants and really what the UC system needs. And again, if you're interested in attending the Student Organizing Summit, again, we'll most likely cover at least partial travel, again, depending on the number of signups we have. And if you're interested, I am dropping in the chat the sign up link, which is the first link. And the second link is a when to meet that the UCLA delegation will fill out, so we can schedule some like prep meeting times and just more discussion really about these policies and flesh them out. So please fill those out if you're interested, and or send me an email or Slack message, and I'd love to discuss any ideas you have further. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Eva, for everything. That was so amazing. And for everybody, council members were able to speak. That was all amazing ideas. So I'm happy to see what we follow up with. Okay, so we will be going into appointments. So we have a couple different appointments today. So just a brief recap of how we did it last time. So the candidates will have 1 minute introductions. Then we'll do about 3 to 4 questions from council. They'll do a 1 minute closing. We'll hear Art's recommendations. And also, I believe Art is now giving like statements of like why their decisions. So love that. Then we'll go into deliberations, which is mainly just for council to talk amongst ourselves, voice any thoughts, concerns, and then we'll go ahead and vote. Okay, so starting up with our first one, we have Brendan for Student Fee Advisory Committee. And then, perfect. And then Brendan, whenever you are ready, you can start with your 1 minute introduction.
Hi, can you hear me? Brilliant, okay. Just one moment. All right, are we good to go? Awesome. So, hi, my name is Brandon Bornson. I'm a rising second-year transfer, double majoring in statistics and political science. Obviously, I'm applying for the SFAC. My pronouns are he, him. I'm very passionate about good governance. This is something I became involved with as a caucus chair at the YMCA, an independent undergraduate researcher, and then most recently as an IT worker at the UCLA Library. On that last position, in our training at the library, we are encouraged to view the technology that we're in charge of distributing to students and faculty as if they were our own. This is because our tuition effectively pays for the equipment, so we owe it to ourselves and our fellow students to maximize the respect that we give to these resources, as well as the utility of the funding that we're entrusted with. The same mentality would bring me to the Student Fee Advisory Committee. As a stakeholder in student fee dispersion, someone experienced in creating and closely analyzing budgets for nonprofits and independent research, as well as someone currently accountable to the UCLA student body with regards to technology distribution, I believe that I would excel in this position. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, thank you. So now we will open up for council to ask a couple questions. Okay. Any questions from council? Sujana?
I think a very broad and general concern given student fees is honestly just the mismanagement and inefficient distribution of fees in a number of different aspects. So I would just want to ask you where you would identify like the most salient, the most obvious spots of like inefficient fee allocation, and especially considering how that will improve direct student services, so directly improving students' day-to-day lives.
Sure. So I think a big issue is a lack of transparency, perhaps. It's been about 5 years since the budget, the funding recommendations were published on the SFAC website. And it's been about 3 years since I believe the chancellor's letter back to SFAC was published on the website. So I believe it's very important that we have more stringent transparency guidelines for SFAC so that students can be thoroughly involved with how student fees are being distributed. I would also seek to get funding to units more rapidly through standardizing the funding request system. I'm referencing, I believe, a minutes document from the 2021-2022 academic year, I could be wrong, where an issue that was pointed out was that units will often begin the applications and then not include enough impact evaluation and detailing exactly what the funding will be going towards. So this causes a lot of back and forth between SFAC and then the units that SFAC funds, which causes a lot of holdup. So I believe that further standardizing that process and creating more stringent application guidelines with more clear impact evaluations would both allow the process to go quicker and then allow student fees to be managed more correctly. And then again, the emphasis on impact evaluation at the end for when units are given temporary funding. I think it would be very important for units to write back and detail exactly how that funding benefited their units and the students that they helped in that process.
Thank you. Okay, and Gabby?
Hi, I just have a quick question. It's a little similar to Sujana's, but how would you prioritize different student needs and also ensure the fair distribution of resources?
Yeah, certainly. So I think this can relate to a couple of different areas. The sort of 4 areas that I think need a lot of improvement would be transparency, accountability, equity, and then hopefully productivity through streamlining the process. But I think one way which SVAC could hopefully improve is a greater stream of communication between regular students and SVAC members. I think a big part of this is that students don't really have access to SVAC meetings. For example, USAC posts the agenda on their website. You post minutes regularly. SVAC doesn't quite do the same thing. So I would see to it that agendas are posted prior to meetings, that minutes are consistently posted, that external documents used during meetings are posted, because currently frequently members will do presentations and present PowerPoints, but those aren't included in the minutes. So it makes it difficult for students to contextualize the meetings. I also think some kind of office hours could be established that could be quite beneficial between the SVAC chair, where students could come and voice funding priorities.
Thank you. Okay, Katie?
Hi, great introduction. So I had a couple questions. So first off, I just had a question about like in terms of lowering fees. I mean, UCLA has like I think the lowest fees among all the UCs, but you know, there's always room for improvement for our students and like their financial responsibility. So are there any fees that you think either can be consolidated with another one or should just be removed entirely? For example, the Kirchhoff-Ackerman fee, I think that I know if you looked at the seismic fee, if you're familiar with it, is like to pay off a loan for reconstruction of the buildings for like seismic, you know, reasons. But I don't necessarily know if that should be given to like, the student's responsibility to pay off that loan. So just in terms of that, like, are there any ideas you have in reducing or lowering fees and fees that you think that should just not really exist anymore?
Sure. So I think this was a priority. I could be wrong because I was not a member of that SVAC committee, but I think this was a priority of the last session to make more of these positions permanent as to alleviate the burden on the temporary budget. This would allow hopefully more attention to be paid towards students' material needs and hopefully, I believe the phrase they used was permanentize a lot of these positions that need to be taken off of that budget. Additionally, I think a lot of the student organization budget can be tweaked slightly. I think we can better allocate club funding to make sure that clubs are using funding in ways that leverage UCLA talent to especially address development issues on the UCLA campus. For example, there's one organization that does a mobile clinic. I think that things like that leverage UCLA talent should be encouraged and incentivized, where clubs should hopefully have to report and tell us where that funding is going as to make sure we're not, spending money on unnecessary things. I can't speak to that fee specifically as I was not a member of SVAC and I'm not entirely familiar with it, but I'd happy to look further into it. It seems like that's not something that should be used to burden students, so I'd have to look into that further. But I would be interested in looking more into that. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, and then we're going to end with Tara.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming to our USAC meeting on a Monday night. My question sort of is the role of SVAC seems to balance like student needs and also working with like specifically with upper administration members. So how do you plan to balance like the financial responsibility of like, but making sure that student needs are put on the forefront, especially maybe under pressure of like administration to like act a certain way or do certain things?
Sure. So I think our highest obligation is to the UCLA community to make sure that we're using their student fees in productive ways that they really see the daily benefits of. I think there often is a sort of a mischaracterization that to do better things for UCLA students, that necessitates us to spend more money. And I think there are some ways in which we can balance the both of those that would both please upper administration and also help students directly. One way I would propose doing this is through leveraging student organizations. I know the people who interviewed me last time have heard more than enough about this, but the Global Development Lab is a program on campus that it offers funding to students who create development projects on UCLA's campus and in the greater Los Angeles area. And this is something that has an upfront cost, but it also brings in a lot of outside investment and a lot of interest in UCLA. The same could be said for research grants and research scholarships. These are things that we pay upfront costs for, but can bring a lot of outside interest into UCLA that can both balance equity efforts and also fiscal responsibility. So I think there's a role to be played in pleasing both parties involved, but the interests are largely aligned for the most part. And I think that's sort of one of the skills that someone in this position would need, would be being able to successfully balance the two to deliver the best results for students.
Okay, and ending with Tyra.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming before the council and being interested in USAC as a transfer student. That's not very common, so I just appreciate that simple fact. I am the transfer student representative, and so I do want to ask you a transfer-related question. Typically, transfers come in with like a sense of both social and kind of educational capital that is kind of unique, and it kind of enhances our leadership. So I'm just curious to know, in your opinion, how or like what kind of social / educational capital would you bring to USAC? And can you expand on like any previous leadership experiences that you've had at the community college or your previous university?
Sure thing. I second that on the social and educational capital. Some of the greatest minds I've met here are transfer students, and they really we bring a very special element to this university. So I appreciate you saying that. I think that in this position, a lot of my experience personally does come from my experience at community college, where a lot of these opportunities weren't present to us. For example, at my community college, I never would have had the opportunity to participate in the Global Development Lab or anything similar to it. I would not have even had the option to participate in student government because as someone who was transferring, I wouldn't have been in the school long enough to participate. So it really puts things into perspective how disproportionate the benefits are to going to a school like UCLA, and why we need to put in additional effort to make sure we're making these options available to transfer students. I would also seek to hopefully get more transfer students involved in USAC and student government, and then also SVAC. As you mentioned, the interest is quite low, and I can't personally blame anyone. 2 years is a really short amount of time to do everything you want to do on the UCLA campus. So the burden is kind of on us to reach out to transfer students. Again, I would like to hopefully host something like an office hours. I think this would be a nice thing for all SVAC. I know that's quite unrealistic, but making ourselves available to transfer students would be a really great way to hear their unique concerns and also to leverage their unique perspectives, because there are experiences that I feel like I bring as a transfer student, and I would not have come across them myself if I had not had that lived experience. So I can't imagine what other kinds of stories and what kinds of things like at the community college level. In regards to my experience, as mentioned, I was a caucus chair at the YMCA. I led the most successful caucus in the program if we're using social media interactions as a metric to success. It was a very challenging job because I had to bring together, this was the first year of COVID, so I had to bring together students from across the state to be able to communicate with one another, and especially in a politically, ideologically motivated caucus, it can definitely become quite heated. So it does require a lot of leadership ability to manage a 70 people group of people who vehemently disagree with one another, to be able to talk over Zoom and not violate any of the YMCA's very stringent terms of services. So, so I would say that taught me a lot about having to lead in a perhaps combative environment, and having to work with people who I would not have otherwise worked with in order to create results for people who I'm accountable to. In that case, it was YMCA leadership, and in this case, it would be the UCLA student body, and then also USAC. So thank you.
Thank you so much for answering all of these questions. I really do appreciate it. So now we move into your 1-minute closing statement.
Sure thing. So I didn't really plan something like this out. I figured I would just, try and express my appreciation for the questions I received today. I believe that I have a experience that would greatly benefit someone in this position. I believe that I'm sufficiently motivated. I believe that there's a lot of room for improvement for SVAC in terms of transparency that I would be really excited to bring to SVAC, to make SVAC work first for the student body, but also make it work better with the administration, and hopefully work towards building a greater sense of trust in student government, which I feel like there's often a disconnect there. So I'd really hope to forward that in this position. But yeah, thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
Okay, and now we will hear arts recommendations.
ARC voted Brandon 2-0 to 1.
All right, and then do y'all want to expand on any reason for why, or? Yep.
Yes, I can say our collective statement. So with a vote of 2 yeses and 1 no, we think that Brandon has a really good vast experience with creating and managing budgets, and he acknowledges the issues that student organizations face on campus in regards to funding, and a lack of funding. Given his qualifications and his strong involvement within campus as well as his experience, ARC believes that Brandon is adequately qualified to serve on the Student Fee Advisory Committee for the coming year.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will move into deliberations with just council members. So does anybody want to share any comments, what they're thinking? Anything at all? Sujana?
Yeah, I would say while I think obviously we're always looking for specificity and a high level of knowledge in our answers, I think Brandon definitely showed that he has at least the fundamental knowledge to perform in this position. And I think as a lot of other committees in USAC, this position is fairly learn as you go, and that you will be able to pick up on these things, I think, relatively quickly. I think a lot of, high level kind of USAC stuff isn't really made very accessible to people anyways. Like what Brandon said about the website not being updated, I just checked myself and it's true. Only the 2020 to 2021 minutes are the latest minutes up for the SFAC meeting. So who can really blame him, right? And I think that, learning as you go is important. I think he shows that he cares. Obviously, he's aware that there are issues that need to be worked on, and we can work with him, make his transition as smooth as possible. And I know a lot of people on this council are very, very concerned about fees. And so if we care so much, we should be willing to work with him because I think he's in a good spot for that. So those are just my 2 cents. 2 cents, get it? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, just to piggyback off of that, when I saw Brandon's application, I knew he did his research, even seeing the lack of transparency, the lack of minutes, and working to advance that, I think is such a great goal. And in addition to that, just the perspective, Brandon, you bring in being a transfer student coming into UCLA, like you said, it's a short time, 2 years to do everything that you want to do as a transfer student. So I'm really glad that you applied for this position. And just kudos to you for all the work that you've done and all that you will accomplish. I agree with Sujana, there are a lot of transferable skills that we need in appointments. I don't believe you have to come in fully knowledgeable, and I believe you possess those transferable skills that you can apply to this role. So you have my full support. And we'll pass off to Tara.
Yeah, I just want to say snaps to everything Sujana said. You articulated that really well and perfectly. But just to Brandon, just wanted to say thank you for, feeling, I guess, confident enough to come before USAC. I believe I am the only transfer student on council right now, and I'm sitting in the transfers position. So that is something to acknowledge, but just thank you for feeling comfortable enough to come to the council and to be engaged with leadership at UCLA. And you also have my support, and hopefully if you get appointed, I look forward to working with you.
Okay, awesome. Do we have any more comments before we vote? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, can I have a motion? And you gotta say the whole thing, the whole role and everything.
I move to appoint Brandon Bornson to the SFAC or Student Fee Advisory Committee appointment.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Alicia motions. Sujana seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, please lower your hands. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. And then all against, please raise your, wait, oh, sorry, was that abstain? Oh, okay. All against, please raise your hand. Okay, so 12 to 1 to 0. And we have Brendan in as the position for Student Fee Advisory Committee. Thank you so much, y'all. We're getting it through. Okay, so yeah, that is perfect. And we'll be moving on to our Community Activities Committee, our appointment with Yu-In Kim. Forgive me if I butchered that. We'll be able to fit so once you do your introduction statement. But yeah, once we get you promoted, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me right. Okay. Hi, my name is Woo-In Kim. I'm an upcoming 4th year majoring psychology, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm currently applying for a CAC position. I believe I'm a strong fit for this role due to my diverse experiences and skills that align with community's goals. First, my leadership experience as the Writers' Den Vice President and the Outreach Director of SWC Bruin Necessities has equipped me with the ability to successfully conduct assessments, secure funding, and coordinate programs, demonstrating my commitment to making a positive impact on campus and the ability to understand how it's like being an organization working with CAC on campus. Additionally, my involvement in student community service initiatives, such as researching firsthand about loss and grief of UCLA students and being the former outreach volunteer director with the UCLA Writers' Den, which is a project funded by CAC, has allowed me to develop a strong communication and interpersonal skills, as well as a deep understanding of challenges faced by economically and socially disadvantaged communities. My leadership, community service, and research experience makes me well suited for CAC committee, and I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute to CAC's mission. Thank you for considering my application. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll get straight into questions from council members. Any questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and start. So what previous experience have you had that you think, or what skills have you previously learned, developed that you think you'll be best able to apply to the Community Activities Committee?
Okay, yeah. So previously I was the financial director for UCLA Writers' Den, and that was, I think, during the transition from remote to in-person learning. And I was able to work with CAC, and we were able to obtain about around $10,000 for the, which is around the maximum for CAC annual funding. And we were able to use that money to serve underserved areas and basically teach kids creative writing around the district of LAUSD district. And secondly, I'm also currently, and have been last year, working with SWC, Bruin Necessities, as I mentioned earlier, and we were able to host a health fair on campus, which would on the Hill, which was like one of the first that we did. We were able to distribute basic necessities such as like menstrual products, dental products, and we were also able to collaborate with on-campus organizations and also get funding with UCLA Housing to be able to basically give these resources to students. We were also, and one of the organizations we also worked with was Sexperts, which was on campus, and we were also able to distribute Plan B. So those are like some of the few things I've done on campus, and currently I'm also working as a research assistant to research firsthand about loss and grief of UCLA students and how virtual learning has affected students during the pandemic.
Thank you. Okay, and passing it off to Sujana.
Yeah, so I would just want to say the Campus Activities Committee, right, has, basically lots of funding power, and obviously funds are limited. You're not going to be able to give funds to everybody that you want to. That's particularly relevant for the Impact Conference Fund, right, which is the annual conference to promote civic engagement between students, administrators, and faculty. So I would just want to ask kind of what characteristics or what priorities you have when considering funding, and what matters to you most in deciding what groups can receive funding, and of course which groups may unfortunately not be able to.
So one of like the three priorities that I do consider is the first thing I would consider is is it serving the needs of the community, like the community needs, not like necessarily what the organization wants. So if there is demonstrated interest from the community that organization I'm considering supposed to serve, that is also something that I would take into consideration. The second consideration is how exactly what community it's serving. I would think I would prioritize underrepresented and socially impacted communities first before any other communities. That also just includes like, that can also be like communities that are like hurt by COVID or online learning, or just overall impacted by anything similar to the pandemic. And third thing is I would consider is the prior successes of programs and the program's history. So if the organization had received funding prior or had funding sources from other places, I would look at that and see how they exactly use that funding source as well. And if they don't have that, I would consider similar funding sources similar organizations we gave funding to, and how successful that was, as well as being able to see if they gave us like an estimate of how much money and what they exactly need it for.
I appreciate that. Okay, and Sarah.
Hello, thank you coming to our council meeting. The question is, what qualities do you think you have in leadership that makes you the best and most qualified position for this position?
So definitely I would say a lot of my like strong skills are really in outreach. So a lot of I was I'm the SWC Burn Necessities like outreach director, as I mentioned before. And I was also the financial director, which also did outreach at UCLA. And I was a vice president last year as well for UCLA Writers Then. So I think a lot of my skill set is an asset in like being able to outreach to organizations. And I think being able to let organizations know that there is funding available, especially for newer organizations, and being able to let them know what exactly our community needs is something that I really want to improve on. And I think that can be really done with my skills in outreach by being able to reach out to the community in need and potentially creating a partner list, because I understand it is harder for newer organizations to get to understand what the community needs, and being able to even have contact and access to partners that they want to work with.
Thank you.
And Janice?
Rune and I know each other actually from Rune.
You're cutting out there, babe. Or maybe it's just on my end.
I think she's also cutting out on my end as well.
Janice, do you want to type your question, perhaps?
She said she'll
okay.
type.
She just wanted to show off with their friends.
Okay, what program or community activity would you be excited to put on? So I think like a lot of the communities that we serve so far are very like physically based, whether that be like learning or just giving like physically out things. So I think one of the communities that I want to serve is like maybe like the disability community, or like mental health, and provide mental health resources if possible to communities. I realize that that's not a very tangible thing to do, but being able to give, being able to give that is also being able to give them access to healthcare in a sense. And a lot of people, a lot of underserved communities don't have access to insurance, as we know, and insurance is very expensive. So are hospital bills. So I want to be able to really be able to help out programs that target mental wellness as well and mental health.
Okay, thank you. So now we will go into your 1-minute closing statement.
Let me pull. Okay. First, I want to express my utmost gratitude for considering me as a member of the CAC committee. My diverse experiences as leader, volunteer, and researcher researcher have instilled in me a deep understanding of challenges faced by underrepresented communities. I'm wholeheartedly dedicated to making a positive impact and working alongside fellow committee members to empower student-led initiatives that address the needs of economically and socially disadvantaged communities. As someone who's been misdiagnosed with my chronic conditions for over 5 years before, I'm dedicated to making sure that no one ever feels that their voice isn't heard. And through my projects next year at school, I continue to strive to do so by continuing to work with organizations funded by CAC. In order to create a more inclusive and diverse experience at UCLA, I believe the key to do that is be able to provide student organizations with the means to do so by providing resources to address problems faced by underprivileged populations, as well as provide necessary training for volunteers. Through CAC, I believe I can build a more inclusive and equitable future. Joining CAC would allow me to contribute my skills, passions to this mission. I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity to work with the committee, learn from each other, and support the development of impactful community service programs. Yes, and thank you for this opportunity as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, can we hear Art's recommendations?
So ARC voted in 3-0.
In your collective statement?
Jonathan or Sarah, would you like to say our statement?
I can say it. Okay. Art said that with her experience and long-standing involvement within CLA and outside of it, as well as her extensive service work, Art believes that Lewin is adequately exposed to serve the community activities committee. Given our goals of increasing inclusivity and transparency, Art is confident that she will bring improvements to CAC and will use her knowledge of different spheres at UCLA within our work to the best extent possible.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now we will enter into deliberations. Oh, Sujana asked, can you paste that into the chat, perhaps? Oh,
Just did.
Okay, thank you. Love you. Okay, so now we will enter into deliberations. If there's any comments, concerns by any council member, please voice them now before we go ahead into voting. Anything? Oh, okay, Jess is typing. Oh, Sujana?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing I appreciated was the emphasis on benefit for the whole community rather than the org's like special interests. I know that we have had discussion in just last meeting about how we want to make sure that it's not the same orgs applying for funds over and over. So hopefully if that is one of her interests, can work with her on getting as many orgs as possible like aware of our funds.
Well, Janice is still typing. I want to second that. I definitely appreciated how you not only said to for underrepresented communities as well, but looking into the actual needs of the community. I think that's very important because some events that we put on are fun social events, but there's also some needs that we definitely should be using with this fund. So I definitely think that's a great consideration to have. And also just appreciate you coming to council and answering these questions. I know some were tough, so definitely appreciate you for applying for this position as well. And let's see, any other comments?
No, definitely. I appreciate you coming to council after our ARC interview. I definitely think you improved your answers from our ARC interview, and I really appreciate that. And just like seconding what Ark said earlier, I think we think that you'll be an amazing appointment on this committee, and we wish you luck.
Okay, awesome. And Jess has her comment in the chat. I'll go ahead and read it out. I work with in and trust her to her ability to execute programming, and her commitment to green necessities is reflective of her continued effort in advocating for basic needs and all students' wellness. Awesome, appreciate it. Okay, so we will go ahead. Can I have a motion?
I move to vote on Win for a position on the campus activities committee.
I second.
All right, Sujana motions, Megan seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. And then all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with a 12-0 vote, William Kim is now an appointment in our Community Activities Committee. Thank you so much, and congratulations. Okay, awesome. Moving forward with our next appointment. Halfway there. Okay, we have our USAC Community Service Mini Fund with Trevor Smith. And so we'll go ahead and start with your 1-minute introduction whenever you are ready.
Hi, can everyone hear me? All right. Yeah, so I'm Trevor Smith. I go by pronouns he, him. I'm a rising second year math econ major, applying for the CSC or the CS mini fund. Specifically, I'm interested in the chair position. I believe I'm a good fit for the position, and I'm sort of drawn to the position because of my service work throughout high school and college, serving in low-income housing communities, food kitchens, homeless shelters. I think through these experiences, I was sort of taught and learned how to approach service through listening to people in the communities we're serving first. And I sort of hope to take this listening first approach to sort of hear the needs of service organizations on campus to ensure that funds are properly being used to support their needs and help support their missions as they're serving the community. In approaching this mission, I believe my past volunteer and professional work will allow me to be an effective chair of the CS Mini Fund. And I look forward to talking more about these experiences through your guys' questions.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and open up for council members to ask questions. Any questions? I beg. Okay, I'll go ahead and kick us off. No problem at all. Okay, so I know you touched on you have some experience in high school and college that you think will be applicable to this role. Can you just expand a little bit more on some of those experiences, and maybe like you can highlight one of your best experiences that you think will help for the appointment that you applied for?
Yeah, I think currently, so starting this May, I started a position as a finance intern for Serve America. It's a leadership pack for a congressman within my state. I live in Massachusetts, so sort of working with him. His pack is sort of devoted to supporting other Congress members who are going to be service minded and looking to put the country's needs before themselves. So I think sort of in that experience, I've learned, I think, a couple skills that will be super applicable. I've had to prep briefings for him sort of as he's like going to meetings. So I think that could help me as I'm looking at the CS Mini Fund chair. I think that could help me form agendas and make sure that we're really setting goals clear for each meeting to make sure that each meeting is running efficiently. Additionally, I think a lot of the work we do isn't really, you're not able to measure or quantify how much like an event raises or something like that. You're sort of wanting to see like, oh, how are we able to support constituents through this event, which is not very quantifiable. So I think learning how to value those different sorts of things will be interesting to apply to this position as well, as I'm sort of looking to distribute funds in an effective way and sort of thinking about oh, what impact is this money going to have at this event versus this event? So yeah, I think those are sort of two big skills that I've sort of gained through that experience.
Okay,
And
and
then,
we have John's question in the chat. So what feature or green flags in CS mini fund proposals / applications would you look for?
yeah, I think for me personally, I'm sort of more, or I'm looking for like direct service sort of towards low income communities, and sort of how we're helping to raise them up through creative ways. I understand that through speaking to some past members on the committee that there's sort of like a point system sort of grading how the funds are distributed and sort of what the impact of a certain proposal will have. So I think sort of starting with the green flags, I think it sort of starts by reviewing that point system with the committee. I think in that decision and in that review, it's important to have a diverse committee who all of whom are able to share their different perspectives and sort of create a more impactful system, and or just ensuring that the system we currently have in place is really doing the job that it needs to.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Council, open for one more.
I can ask a question. Could you elaborate or like talk about your community service experience and like how that contributes to how you're going to reflect like the CS mini fund?
Yeah, I think so. I would say I've definitely done the most service in the low income housing community near my house. I go with a group from my church every week. We're not looking to preach or anything, but we sort of just get bread from Panera that they're going to throw out, and then we hand it out and just look to have conversations with people within the community. I think sort of going off what I said in my initial statement about going into this position with the desire to listen to the organizations we're serving sort of comes from this sort of having conversations with people in the low income housing communities. We were able to better serve their needs because we were able to hear what they actually wanted from us. So I think one time this was applicable was this winter when I was back for winter break. We were serving and they were sort of talking about how they wanted to throw this Christmas or holiday party for the kids and help give them gifts for the parents who couldn't afford gifts for the kids. So because we had formed that relationship with them, they felt open to sort of share their needs. And because of that, we were able to help call around, ask for pizzas, organize some tents so they could sort of be outside, and we got some heaters so they wouldn't be freezing in the cold since we are in Massachusetts and it does snow. So I think when applying that to this position, I think that sort of goes into outreach, which I have some experience in the undergraduate president's office last year. I was on the outreach committee. So I think part of that is reaching out to different organizations and ensuring that they know that the funds are available. And then from there, being able to listen to their needs and sort of go to their events and see how the funds are being used, I think will be super impactful in this position.
Okay, and now we can move into the one. Oh, did anybody have any other questions before we move into the 1 minute closing? Okay, we'll move into the 1 minute closing statement. And go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I think for my closing statement, just like to reiterate that I think I have the organizational skills and the interpersonal skills sort of needed to sort of both manage the budget in an effective way. So I have experience with Excel sheets and Google spreadsheets. So sort of creating an effective budget and staying organized will help with transparency and effective use of funds. And then as well as that, I also have a lot of experience on outreach, which I think will also provide valuable as I reach out to different organizations and clubs to ensure that they know of the funding opportunities provided by CS Mini Fund. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so now we hear from ARC and their recommendations and a statement.
So ARC voted Trevor 3-0 for this appointment. And then I believe someone else will be saying the statement, either Jonathan or Sarah.
I can say it. Just give me a quick second. Apologies. So with a vote of 3 yes, 0 abstentions, and 0 no's, ARC believes that Trevor is adequately qualified to serve on the USAC Community Service Mini Fund. Given his experience with community service and previous involvement within USAC, we believe that he will properly apply his knowledge to the role. With a vision of organization establishing a solid team with a service-focused mindset, Trevor will do the necessary work to properly execute this role.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now we will go into deliberations among council members. So any thoughts, concerns that we want to voice? Okay, it's giving crickets, y'all. Oh, John, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
No, I will just say, like, I think I feel really good about making an appointment that is intentional and like deliberate in like their decisions and actions. So I think like Trevor definitely possesses that. And again, like things I mentioned for other candidates, learning as you go and everything like that. I think I feel good about this appointment.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so we will go ahead into voting, and then let's see, can I have a motion?
I motion to appoint Trevor to the CSC Mini Fund. Or
Can I have a
CS.
second?
I second.
Okay. Megan motions, Katie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, sorry. Please lower your hands. Please lower your hands. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hand. And then all against, please raise your hand. All against, please raise your hand. Okay, so we have an 8-1-0 vote. So Trevor is now appointed at our USAC Community Service Mini Fund.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much and congratulations. All right, moving on to our last appointment of the night, we have for Academic Senate, Undergraduate Council. And we have Tommy, so whenever you're ready, please begin with your introduction statement.
Sorry, he's being promoted to panelist right now. It may take a moment. There might be a lag. But they are not, either they're like in the transition to becoming a panelist, or they were like accidentally kicked out of the meeting or something.
Not in limbo. Okay. Um, right. Would we be able to come back to the appointment in
Are
the
we able to
meantime?
start our officer reports and table this to whenever we can during this meeting?
Oh, we can. Okay, Tommy's here. Can you try this one more time?
Okay, let me try another time.
Okay,
they are in.
my Wi-Fi cut out on my Mac, so now I'm on my phone. So we're just gonna roll with the punches. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start my opening then. Hi everyone, my name is Tommy Contreras, and I'm gonna be I'm a rising second year at UCLA. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm pursuing a double major in political science and public affairs. I'm applying to become a member of the undergraduate council on the academic senate. Having been raised in an immigrant family by two public defenders, social justice advocacy played a large role in my upbringing. I believe my compassion for others, unique lived experiences, my efforts of personal growth and social consciousness, and my desire to make an impact in my community make me a good fit for this committee. As a member of this body, I hope to not only make a greater impact in my community here at UCLA, but serve as a fervent advocate who helps facilitate optimal cooperation and communication between the faculty, the university, and our student body while helping ensure that our university's institutions and policies work for and with all members of our school. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to start questions. And Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, Tommy. Thank you so much for coming to our council meeting. For my question, I was wondering if you could just expand on your previous experiences and how these will help you within this role.
So a large part of the academic senate is in particular working with the faculty here at UCLA to certain like craft and the policies, et cetera, related to undergraduate education. At my high school, I actually had experience working firsthand with the administration and faculty at my high school to craft a curriculum that was more socially conscious and really creating a zero tolerance policy against acts of racism, homophobia, et cetera, on campus. And in the even though I was met with backlash from parents and some students, I was able to work cooperatively with the faculty and administration to get that curriculum changed and make progress towards creating a more inclusive and equitable environment at my high school. And ultimately, this led me to pursue public speaking across the nation, from cities like San Francisco to Washington, D.C., sharing my experience of advocating for justice, et cetera, at my high school with other students so that they too can work with their own faculty and administration to help create that sort of substantive change on their own campuses. In addition to that experience working with my administration at my high school, I also have experience lobbying in Sacramento for policies related to affordable housing, to the use of psychological manipulation and interrogation tactics utilized by law enforcement with minors. And I believe this really, this experience being an advocate for justice and also working with people that are of different positions and in administration would help me navigate this role and really be a fervent advocate on the academic senate.
Thank you. Okay, Sujana.
I just want to ask, given the fact that student representatives don't have actual voting power on the committee, how will you still leverage your position to enact actual change?
Given that student representatives do not have a vote, I think really just helping ensure that student voices are heard and that the students still maintain a voice in the academic senate. A lot of students coming into UCLA, when I was telling them about me applying for this appointment, didn't even know what the academic senate was. So I believe coming in from the perspective of just really trying to really disseminate that knowledge of what the academic senate is and does, while also opening and advocating for safe spaces that students can voice their concerns and opinions related to undergraduate education to the academic senate, would really create and help create substantive change through the body as a whole. But although I do not have a voice, I really think that having that sort of advocate for the student body and really being able to share the positions and opinions and concerns of the students would be huge for the academic senate.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from council members? Okay, so we can go ahead with your go forward with your 1-minute closing statement.
All righty. I would first off like to start off by thanking you all for taking the time to conduct this interview. Throughout my life, I have lived by the motto, education is opportunity in action, the opportunity to make an impact in our world. As a student and global citizen, I always strive to utilize each opportunity granted to me as not only a chance for further growth, but as a chance to apply my own unique gifts, talents, and perspectives to establish myself as an active leader in my community, wherever that may be. As I continue my journey at UCLA, I have reached a time in this journey where I feel ready to give more of myself to our university community and play a larger role in its mission to contribute wholeheartedly to the dissemination and application of knowledge for the betterment of global society. This goal would not be achievable without the input and voices of our esteemed faculty and diverse student body. For this reason, I believe that the academic senate is an integral aspect of our school, and I hope to be granted the privilege to become a part of it this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's hear from ARC's recommendations and their collective statement.
Yeah, so ARC voted Tommy 3-0 for the Academic Senate Undergraduate Council. And would anyone else like to say the collective statement, or should I? Okay. So with the vote of 3 yeses, 0 abstentions, and 0 no's, ARC recommends Tommy to serve on the Academic Senate Undergraduate Council, given his goals of increasing visibility and student voice within the Academic Senate, and that this makes ARC confident that he will bring a unique perspective to the table. Additionally, with his motivation and great ambition that engages him to continue his involvement on campus as a student leader, ARC is confident that he will properly represent the needs of students in the Academic Senate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so deliberation time. Any comments, questions, or concerns left over about our appointment? Okay. Well, I would just say I am impressed. Definitely, as an incoming student, I'm really surprised that you found out about this position, and we'll probably pick your brain more about that later on. But definitely thank you for taking the time to apply based off like the ARC interview notes and just hearing you answer these questions. I definitely think you are well suited for the role and well prepared. But yeah, I would just want to say thank you for honestly just applying and being able to present yourself so eloquently in front of council today. It's a high pressure. So yeah. And okay, so we will go ahead into, unless anybody has any other comments, we can go into voting. Okay, can I have a motion?
Yes, I can move. I move to approve Tommy Contreras to be voted in as Academic Senate of Undergraduate Council appointment.
Can I have a second? Okay, Janice and Sarah seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, please lower your hands.
Wait,
please?
can I vote in favor? Sorry, I like.
Yeah, you're fine. Okay. All abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 11-1-0 vote, Tommy is now part of the Academic Senate Undergraduate Council as an appointment. Thank you so much and congratulations. All right, and that concludes our appointments. So thank you all for bearing with me through that. So now we'll get into officer reports. I'm gonna try and keep it short and simple, y'all. So since our last meeting, I met with a few council members. Thank you all for coming to discuss the appointment process, including some tasks to improve transparency. So definitely we'll be following up with that. I definitely heard y'all and want to continue that discussion. I think it was really great to kind of come together outside of council. Been going through a lot of the appointment applications, so make sure y'all keep up to that so we can get more appointments done this summer. I really appreciate ARC for sitting through 10,000 plus interviews. But yeah, so I was also able to reach out to some folks with FTSP, the Freshman Transfer Summer Program, to do some USAC tabling. So that'll be August 5th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'll be getting more information about how it's going to look, like if we'll have tables, how it will be kind of organized so that we can be best prepared for the folks that want to come. I met with Linda Clovers, who is the director in the Research and Bruin Engagement Office, which is under UCLA's DEI division. We talked about what they do, plans for the upcoming school year, and potential collaborations. Contributed to one of the resolutions I'll be presenting tonight. And thank you so much, Alicia, for your amazing work on those resolutions. Conducted interviews for my staff that will be continuing into this week. Had a brief meeting with Jessica to go over the budget. I met with a Berkeley senator, his name's Kalen, had an amazing discussion about just some of our campus priorities, which was really great. Also had a meeting with another passionate student about some ideas to increase student engagement. At the Atlanta research conference I recently attended, I got to connect with someone involved in student government at Alabama State University. So we're going to be following up and talking about some of our campus priorities there as well. And yeah, that was about it. Okay, moving to internal vice president, Megan.
This is a little longer than my old one, but so essentially since our last meeting, I've hired all my executive staff. I've been assigning them different projects and committees. I have purposely created new committees and positions to ensure that I don't have to reject people. So I added a general events director and committee along with a videography director, and I'm also hiring for a campus safety alliance committee to support me, and also the CSA vice chair, which is still open for appointment if anyone is interested or if anyone knows anyone who would be interested. Naomi, the office of the president, and my office are creating a joint team specifically for the USAC social media accounts, so like an Instagram or things like that. So we are hiring for that as well. Thank you so much for some of the council members that met with us last week to discuss ARC and the appointments and its power within USAC. We also discussed our last ASUCLA Board of Directors appointments and how we can improve that process for next year. And hopefully we can maybe change the timeline a little bit to accommodate for our transitions with elections and everything. Last week, I also met with Evan to discuss some of his appointments and how we can move forward with them. So since last meeting, ARC interviewed 6 people, in which 4 of them were here. And we interviewed one person earlier this afternoon. We currently have 12 interviews scheduled for the rest of this week. So please be ready for multiple potential interviews during next council meeting. Earlier today, I met with Tyra to discuss some potential future plans we have together. So including a TSR IVP transfer welcome week, leadership and SOL workshop during the fall, a TSR and IVP winter quarter transfer club fair. I also met with her as ASU chairperson to discuss any future plans we have, including an ASU IVP Black Bruin Leadership Development Workshop in the fall, an ASU IVP Harame Council Networking Social potentially in the fall or winter. I'm also co-sponsoring resolution for later tonight with Alicia. So thank you so much for all your hard work on that. I know you've written a lot and it took a lot of effort, especially with the limited time we had. And Naomi and I have been contacted by the HSI student liaison, which is Daniela, the former academic affairs commissioner, to discuss HSI progress and how we can support them. So we will most likely be working with her soon.
All right, moving on to External Vice President Eva.
Hi, everyone. Hope you've had a good couple weeks. So our main priority over here has been hiring. We finally finished interviewing people yesterday. So we made like some pretty tough decisions. So that's been kind of taking up my time. In a similar vein, I also have been in general like onboarding my chiefs of staff and preparing materials for the incoming directors to read. So I wrote like a brief about like basically breaking down what UCSA is. I'm actually happy to share that with anyone because it's high key the best thing I've ever seen come out of UCSA. It's like so fire. I also briefed, I also wrote a brief on like our like involvement with other campus organizations so we can really solidify those relationships and continue to grow them next year. Our main focus this week has been, other than that, has been kind of tuning into the Supreme Court cases. And I also want to draw your attention to something in LA local politics. So I don't know. So LA Mayor Karen Bass has a signature policy called her Executive Directive Number 1, and it was initially designed to expedite permits for affordable housing projects. But a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, she revised it to like limit it to not be included in single family zoned areas in LA. And you know, those are really the areas we want to target to make more affordable housing. So we're gonna cook something up, an EPP about that. Furthermore, EVP, AAC, and CSC are in the process of scheduling a meeting with the Center of Community Engagement for UCLA, really trying to see if we can compensate those 195 CE internship courses. I'm super excited about that. And lastly, Tyra and I scheduled a meeting for Wednesday. There we're going to talk about some legislation and some ideas that we have to collaborate in the coming year, including like some beginning stages planning for Transfer Lobby Day and Black Student Lobby Day, both of which are in winter quarter. And so going over maybe potential like legislation that we could discuss there, as well as other tactics to like improve collaboration across our offices and, you know, really prepare the student body to be able to lobby. So yeah, thank you all so much.
Okay, moving forward for Gen 1, Katie. I think she said her laptop was about to die, so I don't know. Might have fell off. Okay, yeah, okay. So Gabby?
Hi. So I believe it was last week I met with Tyra about a commuter event for Transfer Welcome Week or for some time during the beginning of the year. And then this event would essentially help commuter students in terms of affordability and also help students know about things like daily discounted parking and where you can park and how to obtain a parking permit. I also met with Adam later about the same event, but then we also spoke about a potential raising awareness for mental health event, which, by the way, Janice, I would love to collaborate with you on that. I also met with Jonathan about an internship between all 3 of the Gen Rep offices, so stay tuned for that. And then we also, the appointment search committee had a graphic made to spread the word about appointments, and we're also working on more graphics just to highlight specific individual appointments.
Awesome, thanks all. The internship sounds so dope. Okay, so moving on to Gen Rep 3, Jonathan?
Yeah, hi y'all. So I have a couple updates. So I officially have my exec board. I had a preliminary meeting with them to discuss goals and kind of orient the office. I'm getting the Slack up, so that should be up in a couple days. 2 of them are transfers, so wink wink, Tyra. I'm very excited. So yeah, I'm currently hiring directors for platform. Please plug if possible. That would be greatly appreciated. Um, I met with Anya Schultz, who's an incoming senator at ASUC, Berkeley. So Berkeley's USAC equivalent, and I discussed space for collaboration. She's really helping me out with the dual degree program, given that Berkeley already has that, and she's really helped me get connected. She'd like to start a Books for Bruins equivalent over there at Berkeley, given that, we, UCLA, already have a strong program like that, as well as a resource sharing program between UCs. First with a trial run between UC Berkeley and UCLA. I looped in both Eva and Sujana to help in this so that we can have meetings and kind of support and foster this connection between UC Berkeley and just kind of help each other with resource sharing and, support each other's student governments the best we can. So I also, like Gabby mentioned, we talked about our office and our internship program. Really excited about that because, I was an internship director before, and I think that's one of the funnest work that you can do because you just really get to interact with students one-on-one and really get to see them learn more about student government and see just how excited they get. Attended the meeting discussing appointments. That was really productive, and I really appreciated being able to be looped into that conversation. Appointments in ARC, yay. So many interviews. Shout out Megan and Sarah. I appreciate them lots. It's always fun to have our little debriefs afterwards. And I'm meeting with the Bruin card office next week. Excited to see how that goes and really just trying to get that Bruin digital Bruin card implemented. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, great work. Okay, so moving forward, we have our academic affairs commissioner, Sujana.
Yeah, hi everybody. So first, I finally had my meeting with my SOL advisor, Melissa, and we discussed how SOL can support in making programming happen, and just connect us to all the stakeholders. And it was actually a really, really productive conversation. And Melissa's super knowledgeable about a lot of ASUCLA stuff and AAC history, which I really appreciated. Regarding the textbook affordability campaign, a lot of which has to do with inclusive access, I met further with Katie Wagman, who I mentioned before is one of my commission directors, to basically plan on writing 2 sign-on letters that we will be bringing to the next USAC council meeting. The first being for course marking. And so basically course marking is a plan to mark courses on the course planner with a certain indication if they are free or basically if the materials are relatively cheap. And this is so that students can have full transparency and the affordability of their classes, especially because a lot of times the inclusive access system and the changes to it can make it so that students don't really have that option later on in the quarter. The second sign-on letter is to advocate for a representative to the UCOP task force on textbook affordability, because currently there is no student sitting on that task force to provide that input and that perspective. And so we are planning on bringing both of these letters to the USAC Council, as I mentioned. And further, we are working on kind of coalition building around the matter. So I think all of you guys should have received emails from Katie herself, actually, with more information on this issue, kind of a full brief about it, as Eva would say. And and if you haven't responded to that, I should have followed up on it. So check your inbox. We are also planning on reaching out to Tiara, who we appointed at our last council meeting to the board of directors. She mentioned textbook affordability as one of her interests, and she has ASUCLA work experience, so kind of is familiar with a lot of things in that regard. And so we're going to be working with her on that as well. And it would also be really helpful if you guys could continue to circulate this survey. If you haven't, I'll send it here. Hopefully that works. But that's basically just again, to help us when we are bringing these issues to stakeholders, so that we can have that to back up the issue. So thank you guys. And then I have met with academic senate leadership, which was also really, really productive. I met with the outgoing chair and then the chair-elect. as well as the executive director. And they are very knowledgeable and very helpful as well. Thank you, Megan. And they helped connect me to Catherine Sugar, who is the chair of undergraduate council, as well as Julian Nelson, who is the policy analyst for the committee, so that I can work on the issue of incomplete notations. They also helped connect me they helped direct us for the 195 CE internships, as Eva mentioned, to Shalom at the Community Engagement Center. And so we're scheduling a meeting there as well. Regarding incomplete notations, in addition to like academic senate stakeholders, I've also reached out to like academic advising and the registrar to help out with that issue. I had my first training session for my directors yesterday, which was really exciting. Everyone was able to meet everybody face to face. And we were able just to get to know each other. And I gave a presentation on like the history of USAC and AAC. I thought it was cool that people kind of came from like all different levels of like background at AAC. Like one of my directors is an intern transfer that hasn't even really been to UCLA yet. And there's a number of international students as well. So it was cool. And besides that, I'm just continuing in planning my programming, such as the midterm stress relief week and other events. I'm meeting with Tara this week, hopefully actually to discuss an AAC and TSR Black Bruin and Transfer Bruin study hall. And as Jonathan mentioned, I'm also connecting with UC Berkeley's academic affairs representative, senator, not sure, but that will also be happening sometime this week. And I will be helping out with Books for Bruins as well and getting that started there. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Awesome work. Okay, so moving on to Campus Events Commission, Mason.
All right. Hi, everyone. Glad to be back. Sorry I couldn't be here last week. I was doing the road trip drive from LA back to where I live in DC, and I was in like the middle of Wyoming, I think, when the meeting was happening. And there was no service, there was no anything actually. It was just grass. So that was really fun, but excited to be back. As far as updates go, my directors are pretty settled into their roles at this point as much as they can be. So I'm working with all of them to start like planning our fall quarter events and even some like events after fall quarter we've already started. So I'm really excited about that. And also, as you guys know, Brew and Bash is like the main thing that CEC and CAC, or like me and Alicia, are working on all summer. So we're meeting with Angela Scales and Learfield, hopefully sometime this week, to finalize our sponsorships or potential sponsorships and get those approved for Brew and Bash. Also, hopefully meeting with Jonathan, Jessica, and Fernando to close out our remaining budgets for CEC and maybe CAC as well, and hopefully put that towards LATC for Brew and Bash as well. And we're starting to get responses from artists that we've reached out to and like are hoping to maybe get for Brew and Bash. So once we get all the responses, we're gonna hopefully have a meeting with all of our A&R directors and finalize who we really want as our top choice. And yeah, just a lot of other stuff going on with like marketing and developing our graphics and overall plan and everything. But yeah, that's kind of my updates for right now. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving into Community Service Commissioner. Oh wait, I don't think Ching had a proxy. Okay. Skip. Well, actually, was there a proxy? No. Okay. So moving on into Cultural Affairs Commissioner, Alicia.
Hi everyone. Yeah, seconding what Mason said. I'm also like scheduling meetings internally, like for our all staff, for our design part. Chris should be working with our respective chiefs of staffs or admin commissioners, assistant commissioners, for the enormous activities fair. And soon enough, we'll get started on RecFest. But yeah, we're prioritizing like the artists, the main headliners and opening acts. Yeah, and then other than that, I've also been working with ACCLA, Fernando, Jonathan, Jessica to close out the year, learn the referendum money that we got for Brew and Bash, and soon hopefully our budgets for the upcoming school year, and closing out last year's budget. the other things that I worked on the 2 resolutions. Thank you everyone who co-sponsored or added anything. I really appreciate that. Other than that, I've also been onboarding my directors, returning and new, for the upcoming school year, and creating a schedule and a marketing plan for all of our upcoming events. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. Sorry, I'm in a car. I'm about to go to my room right now, but that is, I think, everything I'm doing for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your amazing work. Okay, awesome. Facilities Commissioner, Evan.
Sweet. I'll try and keep it kind of quick because I know we still got a lot of stuff to go through and it's getting late. But we have officially hired out all project directors. So that's exciting. So we're just doing onboarding now, getting through that stuff. I had 3 kind of exciting meetings this week with different members of like the local and state government, mostly through the Northwestwood Neighborhood Council, but was also there representing USAC and UCLA. So the first one was with Mayor Karen Bass. We had a roundtable with her. I was lucky enough to sit next to her. She's fantastic. I mean, just incredible, has such a great presence, but like we also talked about, there's a lot of issues there. So we were definitely able to talk about and kind of rack her brain and figure out how we can move forward in some better ways. And she was very supportive too of the Spolta Transit Corridor. So we're excited to schedule some further meetings with her about the STC. And she's actually very hesitant about our position on it. She doesn't have a position one way or another for mode. So that's going to be a big project for us moving forward and a big point of lobbying between us in collaboration with the EVP. So the other big person that we met with was also Fiona Ma. That's our state treasurer. She's really important when it comes to a lot of these transportation and other projects. So we were there, we were advocating for transportation related things, and then also for different accessibility infrastructure and investments coming into UCLA. So that was pretty exciting. And then the final one too is we had an in-person meeting with Katie Young-Yaroslavsky in City Hall. That was all about local transportation upgrades. And she told us that it was her #1 priority for the district for transportation projects is what we're doing right now in Westwood. So that's really exciting. And we really kind of have the full backing of at least that kind of chapter of City Hall, which has not really been the thing in the past. They've not been supportive of this like at all. So that's really exciting to have. And we're really excited to have now regular meetings scheduled with her as we move forward, hopefully get these projects implemented. Yeah, so thank you all so much.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay, moving on to Financial Supports Commissioner, Sarah.
My gosh, hi everyone. I'm also going to keep this short because obvious reasons. We have had a director's meeting or an executive director's meeting. And then also, okay, that's better. And then also, we have filled out a couple of rec forms. 1, just giving more money to commuter students, and 2, for the New York Times subscription. We are also just within our meetings have talked about plans for next year and just organizing our office. We also probably will hopefully start meeting with council members soon just to talk about collaboration specifically with commuter students. And then also the New York Times program should be up and running at this point. So we're going to start promoting it, but also for all y'all, if you put in your emails to the link, you should get a free New York Times subscription for the whole year. And yeah, those are our main updates for now. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, and definitely will be down to help get that graphic out there. Okay, awesome. And then moving on to Student Wellness Commissioner, Janice.
Yes, hi. Hopefully, can you guys hear me? Oh, okay. I'm having such internet problems, but updates for me, just a small thing, but I signed up for the SOS that EVP Eva presented on. So I'm super excited about that kind of stuff. As for, oh my God, Megan. Okay. Hello. As for appointment search committee, agreed with everyone else who brought it up, but the graphic turnaround took a really long time. So we're just going to continue to work with one another and trying to maybe do the graphics ourselves and whatnot. And then right now, my life is just a lot of meetings. SWC just had a finance meeting, our first one of the year, to figure out establishing plans for transparency and our spending priorities for this year, looking back and making improvements moving forward. And then upcoming, I just have a ton like with our own SGS people, with getting informed, because I'm really confused, honestly, still about appointments, but just trying to be as informed as I can be on the appointments I'm responsible for moving forward. I'm also moving and meeting with my platform directors, which I'm really excited about. I also have a meeting with the infectious disease management team next week. We're voting on a possible vaccination opt-out policy for the COVID vaccine. So if anyone has thoughts on that, particularly if you have experience with and are passionate about students with disabilities, any of that, please reach out to me. Also, Tyra, we've been emailing back and forth about various things on meeting for collaboration. And then yes, I honestly cannot speak much on the opt-out thing because the meeting got rescheduled. It was supposed to be today and now it's next week. But yeah, if you have any strong thoughts on that, please let me know. Because SWC sits on that group. And then lastly, our equity and inclusion committee. Oh, thank you, Alicia. That's perfect. Yeah, our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, diverse SWC, is planning on creating a DIE leadership fiat lux, actually, which is super cool. So we're meeting to talk about that this week also. And then for internal updates, we finally transitioned all of our hires, like all like 50 people, fully transitions. This means everyone like had a transition meeting. They did like a short answer questionnaire, all of that, and everyone's situated and ready to go. So we're super excited. That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, we'll definitely follow up with you after the meeting today. So we'll go into our next Chancellor Student Representative, Tyra.
Hi everyone, happy summer. I'm so happy. I'm finally home. Honestly, if y'all hear my cousins in the background, like there's nothing I can do about it, so sorry, they're just loud. But as you can hear from other officer reports, I've been booked and busy writing emails. If you haven't gotten one from me, it's coming soon. But I just wanted to say shout out to Eva so much. She pointed me out, she like gave me the contact information to the other TSRs. So I was able to email all of them, and hopefully I can schedule a meeting with them to see how we can help each other, but how we can also just be kind of in sync for the year with our transfer leadership, just being consistent. I also am going to be interviewing this entire week with my chief of staff, Kelly. She's my only remaining chief of staff, so we're just gonna have to shoulder this one. I have a meeting with Jessica and my sole advisor, Anna, on different things of how they can support for me. I think on Wednesday, I specifically want to talk with them about like how to design the Transfer Unity Council, but also how to create the mental health commissioner position. I've been working on a TSR's office academic calendar. And so everything that previous council members have been talking about, I've been kind of trying to place dates on them and like figure out if it's fall, winter, or spring. Of that, I want to include something in the TSR like programming, something called Transfer Tuesdays, playing around with the design of the event, but it would be like bi-weekly general body meetings that are hosted by the TSR's office. I met with Megan today. We talked about a lot of good things, and I'm so excited for our collab. Actually, it sounds so dope. We're going to be empowering both transfer and Black student leadership throughout the year. I met with Gabby last week to talk about an event for the TSR Welcome Week, which I'm also excited about. Naomi and I worked on like a commuter student parking pass grant situation last spring quarter, and so we're hoping to continue that work through this event. And then Sarah and oh my God, my brain is blinking right now. It will also be in fall.
The parking grant.
Oh, okay. Well, this is kind of like, what do you call it? Like a parking pass grant, like giveaway type of situation at like a mix or mingle. But it'll be me, Sarah, Gabby, and Adam for that. And then I think I have a meeting with Evan on Wednesday I've also been trying to get quotes for like TSR merchandise, like transfer Bruin merchandise. Um, I found like leftover TSR shirts in my office, but they looked older, and so I don't know if there's been TSR merch recently, so I don't know how to navigate that, but I guess that'll be a Jessica question. I also have a meeting with Eva this week. I have a meeting with Sujana. Um, I met with Megan and the rest of council for like the discussion on the appointments last week. That was a cool conversation that we were having. I'm also going to be presenting for the FTSP peer counselors for just how they can generally support incoming transfer students. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be sometime at the end of this month. I also am in the Bruin Guardian Scholars Program, which is a program for former foster youth. I am in guardianship. And while I was there, I got to see the director of Students with Dependents. And she was basically advocating to me that she doesn't really get a lot of institutional support to support, students with dependents. And that doesn't just have to be students who actually have like biological children or like whatever in childcare. It could be somebody who just has dependents. Like in my case, I guess I technically would qualify because when I come home, like I have to deal or like I have to take care of my family on top of being in school. So how can we work as a student board, I guess, to kind of uplift but also empower that community? I think it's a community that we don't often think about. And she does stuff like giving away like student with dependent packages, with diapers, with wipes, with baby formula. So I feel like if there's anybody on this call that kind of resonates with that or like wants to support that, I told her that I would help her kind of bridge the USAC SWD gap. But of course, I will be working with her because a lot of SWD students are transfers. So thank you, Alicia. Love that. And then I think that's a bit it. I did want to say special congratulations, or not congratulations, that is crazy, but special thank you to Alicia for writing these resolutions because other student orgs on UCLA's campus, specifically like Samahong, they've already released statements. And I just feel like as USAC board or just as a student government at one of the most powerful universities in the world, like we should also have like a similar statement like that, just making our presence known, but also making it clear that UCLA does not have a tolerance for that kind of like the isms being perpetuated through policy. That it's just crazy to me. And it was honestly just like a huge blow. Like every time I would just look at Instagram, it was just another blow. And for some students, it might just be like whatever, they're just making decisions, but it does directly impact a lot of people's mental, educational, like political, social well-being. So I think we should not take that lightly. So I appreciate Alicia for that. But yeah, I'll shut up. That's my report.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to one of our last officer reports. We have International Student Representative Adam.
Hey everyone, I hope you're all well. So since last meeting, I met with the director of the Dasher Center, and we talked about some plans for the coming year. I also met with Gabby, and we talked about some events that we want to work on, which she already talked about. And I'm working on creating a small club, like a small group of clubs, of different international targeted clubs where you can work together and promote international student engagement. And lastly, I'm working on setting up some workshops with international Bruins in business this coming fall and winter. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so going into our admin representatives, let's see who we have. Starting with Orlando.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing okay. I don't have any updates tonight, so we could bypass my time to someone else.
Okay, Jessica.
Not much for me, just super quickly wanted to shout out Fernando for sending emails to everybody confirming that your hiring status and that you've been, stipended. So please, if you didn't get that email or if you're having any issues, let Fernando know so we can look into it. But as far as I know, everybody's been onboarded and is good to go. So, and then there were a few outstanding that we're working through, but just working on that. And then I'll see y'all in a little bit for the budget discussion. That's it for
Awesome.
me.
Thank you. Okay, Lori?
I literally have nothing as I enjoy my evening on the couch.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. But thank you. All right. And then we're gonna jump back to Katie really quick, just because she got knocked out earlier. So yeah. Katie, if you want to give your updates, go for it.
Sorry, I got kicked out. But yeah, so basically what I've been working on is so for the upcoming school year, the beginning of the school year, I met with about 3 to, and I'm now going to maybe like 3 other ones, presidents of different business clubs at UCLA. And we're trying to discuss how we can make it a little bit more transfer friendly, especially at the student activities fair and with like all the applications for business clubs, and how we can really jumpstart transfers, business economics and economic transfers when they come and when they want to get into recruitment, whatever sector of business they want to. So that's what I've been working on the past 2 weeks or so. Other than that, I've been doing my last couple of interviews for director positions in my office, and I'm going to be sending out applications for other positions in my office as well. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So now we'll be going into new business. We don't have any old business, so we'll just jump on over. We're going to start out with Tyra, vote to restrict TSR office funds. I believe this was presented previously at one of our kind of first meetings, but yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look. Is there any like discussion wise, Tara, that we need to have with this, or?
I don't know how this works. I just had some like remaining funds from the spring. Some of them, or like some of it is from different student orgs who just didn't spend all of it. Some of it is also from the transfer center that I was not able to figure out like what they want to do with it. And then some of it is also for one of my initiatives that I was not able to do. So I don't know outside of that what else to say, but.
Okay, cool. So this is similar to the not ASU, but ASP vote that we did earlier to restrict surplus funds. So like Tyra just stated, there are some projects that she wasn't able to quite wrap up, and some of the clubs weren't able to wrap up some of their projects from the surplus fund that was allocated previous academic year. So basically what this would do is that when we do receive our surplus allocation for this next upcoming academic year, these funds would already just be stored away if we vote yes to restrict them. So if everyone wants to take a look at the link attached to the agenda, do we know how much is remaining?
I believe more or less 30,000.
Okay. And does anybody have any questions? About those funds? Alicia.
Is it all going to the transfer student resource center?
Oh, no. So like some of it is for different mother orgs who got allocation. There was also an allocation for foster youth, which I will probably be working on with Bruin Guardian Scholars Program. Some of it was for the transfer center, and then some of it was like for a TSR office initiative. So it's kind of like there's different amounts under that 30,000, if that makes sense.
Awesome, thank you. I just wasn't able to look at it right now, so thank you for telling me.
No, yeah, there's 10 light items under that one budget. I actually got sick and tired of requisition forms real quick.
Okay, cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we go ahead and vote on this? Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move to freeze the account for the TSR surplus allocation.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
Second, like who said it?
Oh yeah, that was me.
Okay, awesome. Alicia motions, Megan seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. Oh. Okay. Sit, stay,
Jessica, I don't, that, it might be because a lot of reg forms are processed by SGA, but my finance director told me that it was around 30,000.
Okay. Still continuing with the vote. Okay, so all abstaining. And then all against. Okay, with 11 to 0 votes, we are restricting the TSR surplus funds for next academic, well, for this academic year, but going into the next academic year. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going into our next topic. So a vote to use council discretionary funds for Kirkhoff Hall door retrofit. Ooh, fancy. Okay, so we talked about this a couple meetings ago, and our last meeting as well. Give the background on it. So these are the council discretionary funds from last council. So technically not our budget. So there wasn't really any other projects for this funds to go towards. And this is a really great cause and opportunity to use the funds for. Did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
Where exactly is the money gonna come from?
So council discretionary funds, we'll see in the budget later when we go over our review, but I believe it's $10,000 that we typically set aside just in our budget.
Oh, okay.
From previous council. So not us.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. Evan.
I guess my only comment is in support of the door. I know that some people might have been like a little bit taken aback by just the cost of it, but I also think it's really important to think about these things, I guess, on like a cost per usage. Just think like, if this thing's being used a couple thousand times a year, you're really spending like $1 per use. And then over time, all these things kind of add up. They are capital infrastructure things. These are things that are going to last us and outlast us for, decades. So I think this is really important. And, we think about campus as being such an inaccessible place. So any small steps that we can take to make our own spaces and the spaces that we can control within, Kirkhoff, within Ackerman, I think that's super important. So I just really encourage everybody to vote yes on this. I think it's a great small step to increase accessibility.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Completely agree. Okay, with that, no, for real. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and motion. Can I have a motion for this?
I move to vote on using our funds to retrofit the Kirkhoff doors.
I second.
All right, Sujana motions, Alicia seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. All right, all abstaining, please raise your hand. All against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 11 to 0, that is, this passes. So we're going to go ahead and use the council discretionary funds for the Kirkhoff Hall door retrofit. Moving on to our next one. We're going to vote to use, for council discretionary funds for council nameplates. So once our meetings are back in person in fall, I think this will be very helpful. So if we can drive engagement, as I plan to do, hopefully we can have people come to our meetings, and then nameplates will be useful as we won't have our Zoom kind of name tags. So yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, crickets. Cool. Okay, so can I have a motion?
I move to use council discretionary funds for council nameplates.
Okay, second.
Oh, I second.
Alicia motions, Gabby seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, awesome. Please lower your hand. Oh, yep. Please lower your hands now. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. And all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 12 to 0, that go ahead and passes. So we'll go ahead and use the council discretionary funds for council nameplates. Thank you all. Okay, so going into our first resolution of the night, we have resolution in support of the LGBTQIA plus community after discriminatory Supreme Court ruling. Alicia.
Hi y'all. Thank you so much for the people who co-sponsored and for allowing me to put this on the agenda today. So I will go ahead and read it really quickly because I know we have some other things to get through. Do you want me to share my screen?
I can make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, that should work.
Thank you. Okay. Please don't mind all the tabs I have. Okay. Please don't mind. Okay, I'll start. Whereas resolution in support of the LGBTQIA plus community after discriminatory Supreme Court ruling. Whereas discrimination and regression and repeal of laws that have fought for the protection and existence of LGBTQIA plus communities and individuals, last Friday, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a Christian web designer in Colorado who wanted to refuse to create websites to celebrate same-sex weddings out of religious objections. And whereas the ruling was rooted in free speech grounds and can create a massive hole in state public accommodation laws for businesses that sell so-called quote unquote expressive goods, allowing for companies that provide customized expressive products and services to pick and choose who they work with. And whereas this decision's promotion and protection of anti-LGBTQIA plus actions and sentiments only backfires on those who are pushing it because it does not invite, include, nor accept queer people into the marketplace. And whereas the overall state of the latest decisions by the life-appointed justices has only instilled more fear, violence, and danger for the country being subjected to these decisions. Notably, there is fear in the current court the current court is setting its sights on overturning the 2015 marriage case. And whereas students at this institution represent our future healthcare workers, lawmakers, and innovators, and whereas through education on LGBTQIA issues, collective efforts among all students wield the power to change and create an inclusive environment for the community, even in light of decisions that are not directly in our control. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Undergraduate Student Association Council respects and shares the unique history of the LGBTQIA plus community at UCLA in the struggle for equity against laws that endanger them. And let it finally be resolved, the Undergraduate Student Association Council commits to supporting students to educate themselves on the community's history of activism, cultivate a safe space for the community, and actively invite community members to take space in student leadership at UCLA. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Any comments, questions among council?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Is there any way we can get like another 5 minutes just to skim over it again ourselves?
I'll give you 3.
3? Okay, I can do it in 2. I can do it in 2.
And while y'all are doing that, I just want to say thank you. Echoing what Tara mentioned earlier, I just want to thank you, Alicia, for your hard work on this. It's definitely doesn't go unseen. I very much appreciate it. It was just like blow after blow this week, this past week, and what we saw with some of the decisions that were made. So yeah, generally from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So can I go ahead and have a motion?
I move to vote on this resolution in support of the LGBTQIA plus community after the discriminatory Supreme Court ruling.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Shuzana motions and then Megan seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. And then all against, please raise your hand. Okay, with 11 to 1 to 0 votes, the resolution is approved. Thank you so much for your work. All right. Okay, moving into our next one. Back to back, Alicia. Okay, resolution in support of affirmative action against the Supreme Court's ruling to terminate equitable college admission in the US.
Thank you. 1 second. Okay, found it. Okay, can everyone see it? Thank you, Janice. Thank you, everyone, for passing that one. This one is a little bit long, so bear with me. Okay, here we go. This is a resolution in support of affirmative action against the Supreme Court's ruling to terminate equitable college admissions in the US. And thank you to everyone who co-sponsored as well. Whereas students nationwide have endlessly fought to protect and keep affirmative action programs, initiatives, opportunities, and policies across all higher education institutions in order to create and expand opportunities for the access, retention, and acceptance of students of color, poor students, disabled students, LGBTQIA+ students, and other marginalized groups. Whereas the Supreme Court's historic decision on June 28, 2023 effectively ended race-conscious admissions programs at colleges and universities across the country. Whereas the Supreme Court excluded military schools / academies from this ruling because they have, quote, potentially distinct interests, end quote, rather than racial equity and diversity in higher education. This decision adds insult to injury by, as best stated by Justice Jackson, preparing, quote, Black Americans and other underrepresented minorities for success in the bunker, not the boardroom, end quote. Whereas students at the University of California, UC, have fought for affirmative action policies decades after Proposition 209, quote, passed in 1996, prohibited UC and other state entities from using race, ethnicity, or sex as criteria in public employment, public contracting, and public education, created a rift and irreparable harm towards the prior admission, access, and retention of students of color at the UC. And this council stands on the shoulders of countless UC and UCLA activists and advocates who came before us. Whereas the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights defines affirmative action as measures that, quote, permit the consideration of race, national origin, sex, or disability, along with other criteria, and which is adopted to provide opportunities to a class of qualified individuals who have either been historically or actually been denied those opportunities, and or to prevent the recurrence of discrimination in the future, in order to, end quote, in order to support equitable opportunities, decisions, and diminish barriers of discrimination against marginalized identities. Whereas Black civil rights whereas Black civil rights leaders of the 1960s were the first advocates and originators, and their affirmative action initiatives were pushed by and codified in executive orders by Presidents John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson in efforts to expand civil rights and correct centuries of institutional and systemic racism in the United States. Whereas the UC adopted affirmative action practices in the 1960s, such as the landmark 1978 Supreme Court case Regents of the University of California versus Back, in order to increase diversity among its student body, with UC's ability to use affirmative action policies affirmed by that case. Whereas at UCLA, the High Potential Program marked the beginning of student-run, student-initiated recruitment program that united community organizers from the Los Angeles area and granted them direct access to the university, until ultimately being shut down and taken over by UCLA administration. Whereas the High Potential Program was terminated in 1971 due to the violent assassinations of two of the program students, Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, and the program was stolen and manipulated by the administration into two components: the Early Academic Outreach Program, EAOP, and the Academic Advancement Program, AAP, without justice to Carter nor Huggins. Whereas at the time, the Third World Coalition, which was led and initiated by students in the Black Student Association, the American Indian Student Association, the Asian Coalition, the Jewish Student Union, and the United Mexican American Students, was the first iteration of progressive students of color organizations uniting, forming the basis for what would grow to be the Affirmative Action Coalition in the 1990s and the Mother Organizations Coalition of today. Whereas the majority of universities were previously free in the US, especially public state schools, until they stopped only admitting white students. Race plays a factor in systemic oppression despite the Supreme Court's decision. Whereas President Ronald Reagan mainly pushed for an end to free college because of the protests in California to teach African American studies when he was governor, then pushed for it throughout the US. Prior to Prop 209, it was clear how affirmative action policies at UCLA increased the racial diversity of the UCLA freshman classes between the years of 1979 and 1994. See Table 1. Whereas opposition to UC affirmative action policies only rose to state and national prominence in 1994 when UC Regent Ward Connerly, also known as the father of Proposition 209, called for the ending of UC affirmative action policies. Whereas UCLA students organized against Regent Connerly's attacks on affirmative action at a UCLA-hosted Board of Regents meeting with a march on UCLA's historic sites of activism, where 50 UCLA students marched along the following path. 1, Murphy Hall, commemorating the Asian radical movement's two-day protest in front of Murphy Hall in 1969. 2, Schoenberg Quad, site of the UCLA South African apartheid protests. 3, Campbell Hall, site of the killing of 2 Black student leaders. and activists Bunchy Carter and John Huggins in 1969. 4. Tonga Steps. I'm so sorry. Let me edit that right now. Site of the UCLA protests against the Vietnam War and Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1965 speech at UCLA. And 5, James West Alumni Center, site of the Board of Regents meeting. Whereas the UCLA African Student Union hosted a debate and town hall between Black student leaders and Regent Connerly that energized hundreds of students to testify against the ending of affirmative action programs at UC. Whereas student pressure against the administration led to UC President Jack Pelteson, the UC Academic Senate, and all UC chancellors, including UCLA Chancellor Charles E. Young, to firmly oppose ending affirmative action at the UC. Whereas UCLA Chancellor Charles E. Young came to the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association Council meeting to seek student administration solidarity against attacks on affirmative action, declaring, quote, "I'm very concerned about a much more central attack on the whole concept of affirmative action. We've got to really work to make people understand why affirmative action is not merely important, but absolutely essential to council," end quote, to council. Whereas the UC Board of Regents, led by Regent Connerly and Governor Pete Wilson, introduced 2 motions, SP-1 and SP-2, to be voted on at their July 1995 meeting to eliminate affirmative action programs for race and gender in admissions, as well as hiring and contracts, respectively. Whereas former UCLA USAC External Vice President and now President York Chang, at the time obviously, mobilized a delegation of students to the July Regents meeting in San Francisco, joining with thousands of students, faculty, and community members, and the Rev. Jesse Jackson to protest these motions, whereas the UC Board of Regents went against overwhelming opposition from students, faculty, and Californians to eliminate affirmative action practices at UC along a 14-0 vote on motions SP1 and SP2, whereas USAC launches with the UC Student Association, quote, 12 days of action, and quote, a statewide campaign of student advocacy organizations, union organizing groups, and USAC offices to sponsor cultural events and forums on affirmative action, whereas 12 days of action culminated in an October 12 rally of 2,200 students in Bruin Plaza, a march along Westwood Boulevard to Wilshire Boulevard, and the occupation of Wilshire Boulevard by 33 students that was broken by LAPD, who arrested 31 students, including USAC President York Chang and USAC External Vice President John Duke. Whereas Regent Connerly and Governor Wilson qualified the Proposition 209, the California Civil Rights Initiative, on the November 1996 California ballot as a way to apply UC's ban on affirmative action to all California public universities, colleges, and institutions. Whereas USAC purchased a full-page ad in the Daily Bruin calling for a protest and march in response, where 600 students occupied 5 floors of Bunch Hall and then marched to Murphy Hall to demand Chancellor Young, 1, continue outreach programs, 2, protect scholarships for marginalized communities, 3, support the campaign against Proposition 209, and 4, refuse to implement regental policies banning affirmative action. Whereas Chancellor Young declares Proposition 209 would have a devastating effect on the university as well as the state and could radically reduce the extraordinary diversity that we have managed to achieve within the University of California system, though is unable to stop the elimination of affirmative action at UCLA being pressured into early retirement by regents. Whereas Angela Davis returns to UCLA to speak to 300 students at an anti-Proposition 209 rally, where 700 students march again from Westwood Plaza to Wilshire Boulevard in opposition to the measure. Whereas despite overwhelming student opposition, Proposition 209 is approved by 55% of California voters on November 5th, 1996, whereas Proposition 209 ended affirmative action in all California public admissions, hiring, contracting decisions by enacting a, quote, colorblind policy of prohibiting the state of California from, quote, discriminating against or granting preferential treatment on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, and public contracting. Whereas the passage of Proposition 209 necessitated the formation of the Affirmative Action Coalition, made up of originally the African Student Union at UCLA, the Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano o Chicanx de Ixtlan de UCLA, the Asian Pacific Coalition at UCLA, Samahong Filipino, and the American Indian Students Association, ASA, and USAC. Whereas the Affirmative Action Coalition united with the goal of repealing Proposition 209, holding a series of protests against the implementation of Proposition 209, culminating the Days of Defiance campaign and an occupation of Royce Hall that led to the arrest of 88 student protesters. Whereas in the immediate aftermath of Proposition 209's passage, freshman Black student enrollment at UCLA dropped 42%. Freshman Latinx enrollment dropped by 33%, and freshman Native American enrollment dropped by 62%, compared to prior year enrollment number, with additional significant decreases in transfer diversity. Whereas in 1998, the Academic Advancement Program, AAP, and the UCLA Alumni Association, in response to declining enrollment among marginalized students, expanded their outreach efforts to underrepresented minorities that were admitted to UCLA to address the drastic damage done to diversity at our institution. Whereas the student-initiated and student-run recruitment, access, and retention projects of mother organizations involved in response to the co-optation of these original 1998 outreach programs by the UCLA administration, and have since then worked to address the low access, retention, and graduate rates of historically marginalized groups at UCLA. Whereas following the passage of the CARE referendum in spring 1999, the Student Initiated Outreach Committee, SIOC, was created by the mother organizations in order to address the falling admission rates of historically underrepresented and marginalized communities at UCLA, which was a direct result of the passing of Proposition 209. The CARE referendum additionally supported the maintenance of the Campus Retention Committee, CRC, under the SRC Student Retention Center, which was created in 1992 following Sama Filipino, African Student Union, Mechela UCLA, and ACE's withdrawal from AAP. Whereas the demographics of graduates from California high schools is no longer representative of new freshman enrollment at UC, graph number 1, since the passage of Proposition 209, leading to significant under-enrollment of Black, Latinx, Native, and Native American students. Whereas despite decades of labor by students of color at UCLA, the continued ban on race-conscious admissions at UC as a result of Proposition 209 has led to a dramatic decrease in racial diversity of the student body at UCLA, with enrollment of Black students at 6%, Native American students at less than 1%, Asian students at 35%, Latinx students at 21%, Pacific Islander students at less than 1%, white students at 26%, and mixed students at 6%. Whereas in 2006, the Asian Pacific Coalition, APC, at UCLA launched the statewide Count Me In campaign with student, faculty, and staff organizers at UC Berkeley, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, and the UC Student Association, which yielded changes in how UC disaggregates data about the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American APITA community, leading to 2010 insights on the continual under-enrollment of communities relative to the APITA mean enrollment. Hmong, negative 13.1%, Bangladeshi, negative 10.4%, Filipino, negative 10%, Thai, negative 9.4%, Cambodian, negative 9.2%, Indonesian, negative 8.4%, Pakistani, negative 7.4%, Vietnamese, negative 3.5%, Sri Lankan, negative 1.5%, and Korean, negative 1.1%. Whereas throughout the UC, freshman Black and Latinx students admitted have decreased between 12% and 60% depending on campus, with these statistics being larger when including data on transfer admission. Whereas California has been one of only 8 states in the nation that outlaws affirmative action policies that promote equal opportunity for all, and we have seen the devastating effects that it has had on students and people of color, the remaining 42 states would only harm millions more people. Whereas businesses owned by women and people of color lose more over 1.1 billion annually in government contracts as a result of Proposition 209, whereas dozens of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members pushed the UC Board of Regents to unanimously endorse ACA 5 and the repeal of Proposition 209 on June 15th, 2020. Whereas the Opportunity for All campaign's historic win in May for the immigrant rights movement that the UC has shown how campaigns like affirmative action bring justice to marginalized groups, because undocumented students should have equal access. They should have a seat at the table. Therefore, let it be resolved that the UCLA Undergraduate Student Association acknowledges that colorblind policies only serve to blind institutions from the real impacts of systemic racism on communities of color, and that Proposition 209's ban on affirmative action at UC has resulted in institutional blindness to race and sex. Let it further be resolved that the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association sees affirmative action as a vital mechanism of inclusivity, diversity, and socioeconomic mobility at California's public institutions. Let it further be resolved that the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association honors the work of recruitment, access, and retention programs by the mother organizations at UCLA, the Opportunity for All Coalition, the High Potential Program, and the other countless of other campus and community organizers who have fought for the repeal of Proposition 209 in California and the security and protection of affirmative action. Let it further be resolved that the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association calls on Chancellor Jean Block and all members of the UCLA administration to consistently voice their public support for affirmative action to whatever extent possible. Let it further be resolved that lack of diversity hurts us all. Diversity and equity is crucial to the wellness of our student body. Wellness for all students is not possible unless built on a foundation that acknowledges and aims to address the inherently inequitable institution that is UCLA and the UC. UCLA Undergraduate Student Association insists that UCLA chancellors and administrators work along University of California President Michael Drake to share our learned lessons with university partners to achieve a better higher educational landscape. And let it finally be resolved that the UCLA Undergraduate Students Association encourages all members of the UCLA community to become involved in actions to repeal this federal measure as a means to reinstate equitable opportunity for all students, especially those from our state's most vulnerable marginalized communities beyond just California's public institutions of higher education, but nationwide. Thank you, guys. So sorry that took so long.
Woo! I love you. I love you, Alicia. Oh my God. There's so much to say, but I just want to start out before anybody else wants to share any comments. Thank you so much for your work on this. It definitely, seeing that decision, it honestly just made my heart drop, because I think about my little sisters and when they eventually apply for college, when they eventually want to enter the higher education space, and just this decision, it just does so much. Like, in thinking about how UCLA, the Black population dropped to literally, it went from 7% to 1% right after the Prop 209 passed. And just how they excluded military institutions, for instance. So we're good enough to die for the country, but not good enough for the higher education space. You captured everything perfectly. You highlighted how the mother organizations have done most of the work. It hasn't been the university. I'm sorry. It hasn't been the university. It's been the mother organization. It's been these retention programs that we have that have honestly raised our numbers after prop. So I just want to thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody else wants to give any comments, I just need to give my flowers to Alicia.
Yeah, I just also wanted to give Alicia her flowers and really just shout her out because for writing this, and I just really wanted to like point out in particular and just say, if you're not saying anything besides yes and approving this, you are inherently complicit in any of these processes going on. I just want to make that very clear.
Megan?
No, yeah, I just want to shout Alicia out. You worked so hard on these resolutions, like, and I'm so proud of you for sponsoring this. I know I added like 2 words, but I'm absolutely so glad you're here. I'm absolutely so glad like you wrote this. And I'm so like, I'm just so amazed. You're so amazing. Thank you so much for this.
Sarah?
Yeah, so my cousin's screaming really loudly right now. So sorry. But Alicia, this was so dope. Like, I just feel visible as a Black Bruin right now. And that like rarely happens on campus. And it just shows, like, I put it in the chat, but this is giving MO retention coordinator, because not only did you give me as a Black Bruin visibility, but also just the work of the mother orgs, specifically just like the projects. As somebody who had to work over like a transfer admit weekend, like, why are students planning this when the university is supposed to be doing this? Also, something I wanted to add, like, I don't know if we can add this kind of element to the resolution, but just how affirmative action has been used to divide and conquer like different populations of ethnic minorities. And honestly, it's kind of just a tool that has been used by like politicians who have reinforced white supremacy of like pitting these different people against one another so that we're all not empowered. And I think it's just crazy. And so that's why it's just such a blow to my heart. But long-winded, thank you so much. And just know I just love you so much for this.
Thank you. I hope you heard like my enunciations on like specific things, like when I said transfer specific, or like when I was like specifically naming some MOs. Like, I hope you guys understand how much you should care about these specific people, populations on our campus, like these specific students as USAC. I don't know if you care about it outside your role, but you are elected by these people, so you should really like feel what I feel when I say them. They're the names of their orgs.
Preach. Evan?
Yeah, I'll keep it really quick. I just wanted to appreciate for both of these resolutions, just the thought and just the amount of effort that went into this. And it shows so much. And really, like UCLA, obviously we were a university that's had to deal with this just terrible decision for a longer time than other universities. So in a lot of ways, people are going to be looking towards us. And I think that this tool and this work that Alicia has put in is really reflective and can be really used by other people. And that's really my hope, is I think that, you know, she's really guided us through just the history of all of this and the way that UCLA has been able to operate in this really constrictive environment. And I just think it's just incredible, and just all that effort that went, I really think it can be very helpful in a much broader, wider sense outside of this council. So just thank you for everything and for all of the work you put in.
Yes, and sorry, just on that note really quick. While I do think we've made great strides, our numbers still suck at UCLA. I just want to say it. I just gotta say it. So I'm like, even if we share like what we got, it's not good. So yeah. But yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, can I have a motion?
Wait, can I read this part that I just added based on what
Oh, yeah.
Tyler said? Okay, thank you. Let it further be resolved. This is the second to last paragraph now. Let it further be resolved, regardless of the white supremacist institutional efforts to divide communities through affirmative action. Affirmative action is still so important to keep admitting, retaining, and uplifting students of color. Not regardless. It's still okay, yeah. So that's what I'm adding. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone good? Any other comments? Okay. Can I please have a motion?
I motion to pass the resolution in support of affirmative action against the Supreme Court's ruling to terminate equitable college admissions in the United States.
Second.
Okay. Megan motions, Gabby seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower your hands. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, all against, please raise your hand. Okay, and a 12-0 vote, the resolution has passed. Thank you so much. Okay, we are almost done, y'all. I pinky promise you. Okay. Oh, not my Wi-Fi acting. Can someone tell me what the? Oh, wait, I got it. Oop, no, just close the agenda. What's our next thing?
Our next item is a discussion on a presentation about CRC/SIOC projects and general relations with the MO Coalition.
Okay, perfect. And Tara, do you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, before we move on to that, can I add one more line item, a discussion? So sorry, y'all. I hate to keep y'all longer. I promise it'll be fast.
Just go ahead and motion for it, or I'm move.
I move to add a discussion item about the hostile environment of AAP / the McNair program for both Black and Brown students.
Can I have a second?
I second.
All right, Tara motions, Alicia seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, perfect. Please lower your hand. Okay, all abstaining, please raise your hand. And then all against, please raise your hand. Okay, a 12-0 vote. That is now added to the agenda item. Okay. And to general relations with the MOs. Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So yeah, I was talking to Megan today about like the future presentation that was supposed to happen about like the mother orgs and kind of like the history of us and our projects. Megan let me know that Ryan said that he didn't feel comfortable giving a presentation on the MOs, just specifically the CRC and the SIOC. Honestly, I just want to have a good discussion about this because I don't really see kind of how you can have one presentation without like the other aspect, like they kind of go hand in hand. For example, like that's like me coming to the council presenting a presentation about ASP, the academic supports program, but then like not presenting about ASU. It kind of doesn't really work that way. And I don't know. I think Ryan had said that because of the current state of the MO coalition. And so I guess what I'm trying to say right now is that I just think that we should wait on that presentation just until the mother orgs can kind of come together and present a collective presentation on the MOs, what we do through the projects. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what was presented in Alicia's resolution. And so I just want to have a discussion about how y'all felt about that, but also just like considering the current state of the MOs, like how can USAC as a council give support to the MOs to kind of make sure that we never have a state like this where we're disorganized. Like we have a state where student leadership is kind of unified all across the board. But yeah, just throwing that out.
No, yeah, thank you for raising that concern. Sujana?
Yeah, I guess actually with what Tyra just mentioned at the end, I have two different things to say. But first, at least given the presentation, I think it's understandable. I mean, I know he has his own personal reasons, but I also like myself kind of think that also within the ML coalition, like they are a coalition, but they are also very distinct orgs with like their own distinct goals. And I think it would be worth it if they were able to each have a bit of their own time to present. And that way they could at least be speaking for themselves. It could be hard, for all of them to coordinate under one speaker anyway, especially in a timely manner, especially over the summer. So it just seems like not something you want to put on the back burner, and it could be easier to do it that way, and also more representative and true to their intentions. And then I also think, like as to your point about, I think you mentioned disorganization and kind of the state of the MOs at present. I do totally think like that's a big issue that we should be like, we should be giving like structural support, financial support, et cetera, to these projects. They're super important. I know, like, I have spoken with Ryan in the past, and he also let me know, like, that some programs under the SIOC and CRC like didn't even have program directors last year, like didn't get launched until like spring quarter, and so on and so forth. So obviously it's very important. I know, like myself, I have a platform called Growing Roots, which is actually all about strengthening AAC's relationship with the mother organizations and like providing structural support, because that has like everything to do with academic success overall of those targeted communities. So what we're doing there is we're doing like weekly roundtables with representatives from the MOs, just so that we can give them like our weekly updates and so on and so forth. So that may be a suggestion I would extend to you guys. I mean, obviously weekly roundtables is kind of a lot to commit to, but at least perhaps committing to like a couple of check-ins a quarter, and also helping with just I think a big part of the issues with like administering and executing the programs this past year was also, that lack of like interpersonal like cohesion and manpower, and just the reality of like everyone being college students. And as such, I think that's another place we can really help out in just making sure that we are not keeping them on a timeline in that way, but like keeping them on a timeline in that we can like check in with them, really make sure we're like helping out, whether that's like manpower, communication, or like like setting up meetings with administrators. But yeah, anywhere we can support with that would be really important too, I think. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you. Okay, and then Megan.
No, yeah. So I know earlier last week I asked Ryan if he could present on the mother organizations. He just got back to me today that he doesn't really feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the coalition, but he would be comfortable doing a presentation on CRC/SIOC projects and how they interface with the mother orgs. But I do agree that we should probably wait until the mother orgs feels like so fully supported, or at least more together, because I really want to be able to like have that presentation. He said he didn't really feel comfortable because like the MO coalition is kind of in an odd spot right now. So I will be reaching out to see how I can help with that. And any support from any other USAC offices would be very helpful. I definitely agree that we need to like be supporting them more. And Sujana, if you are down to help, I'm definitely down to like join together and like help them.
Okay, and thank you. And then I'm going to cut in really quick right before Jonathan. So I get kind of everyone has like kind of an idea, but when I initially ran, and I wanted to say this again, just because a lot of people in leadership for the mother organization, I think all of them, they're not paid. We're a paid position. I think it's really important to recognize that, and we have to meet people where they are. So if Sujana reaches out asking for a meeting, if then Megan reaches out asking for a meeting, while that would be valued, it might spread them too thin at the end of the day. So I would like if we have kind of like an idea of how we can go about this as a collective, how we as a collective can support them. One idea I had with when we talked to ASUCLA, like in the beginning, and just how like in the past they've been able to provide stipends or get more funding for stipends. What if, I think Alicia had this idea last year, like how can we maybe even produce like a stipend for them, like to pay their actual leadership team so that MO stipends, so they can actually feel supported in the work that they're doing. And it just doesn't go like, hey, I'm just doing this to do this, like actually like have monetary compensation for the amazing work that they do and continue to do. As even Elisa highlighted in the resolution we just passed, just like I wanted to have a town hall idea with the MOs to kind of just have like where they are right now, what we can do to better support them, how they even feel about USAC input in that, because they might not want it. Like at the end of the day, like some of them are like done. like how does that feel? Like, can we even rebuild the relationship? So that's just some of the things I want to say, but let's hear out from other folks. Jonathan?
Yeah, so I just kind of want to echo what Sujana mentioned about like, having those presentations from different MOs and making sure that we're kind of giving them the space to kind of have their own voice. That being said, I think many MOs are having internal problems, and I totally agree. I think in one way or another, we need to have these conversations to like aid and increase support. I agree with the stipends. I think that would be really important, as well as bettering the representation, because frankly, there are some MOs. I'm not going to name any, but I think in particular for me, I've not felt adequately represented by the MO. Myself and many people in my community have not felt adequately represented by the MO that's meant to represent us. So I feel like that has kind of caused for students who don't feel adequately represented by their respective MOs, they won't involve themselves as much, and this fragments the communities they're meant to support. So I think we kind of have to go back from that route and see like how we can increase student involvement, but also go to the MOs and be like, frankly, if you're not well representing your communities, because I will say many of us are in those communities, many of us in here in this meeting right now do belong to these communities that MOs are representing. So we still have a voice. And I think we have to have those conversations and be like, look, many members of the community, I think in particular, the Latinx community, do not feel adequately represented. And that's at least what's caused a lot of fragmentation within the respective mother org, but also within the Latinx community as a whole. So I think we have to have those increased conversations. And I agree, totally providing more support, but also conversing and being like, look, you need to make sure you're representing your community, because you will not have that support from your community if you're not doing it. But yeah, I just wanted to voice a bit of like my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Alicia?
Oh my gosh. I second what Jonathan said, in specific, like to our community. But I also wanted to echo really quickly what Naomi said, because there's just a lot of issues that are, what's it called? Interconnected with USAC, like for example, CPO, for example, checks. The fact that previous council didn't know who CRC, like communicate with CRC chair, communicate with the SIOC chair that these checks were released by BOD. Like stuff like that town hall would be really important for. But also just being sensitive to these issues, because they are literally like cases of misconduct from UCLA, like administrators and full-time staff, like people's like experiences that we need to be very careful about in just like having these conversations with and considerate for, as well as like what's it called, just being mindful of how burnt out the spaces are, because like dating back to Murphy, dating back to the TA strike, dating like all of these series of events in the past like 2 years have definitely contributed to like just the MO coalition turning into the current, like becoming the MO coalition of today, like the current conditions of the MO coalition. So yeah, just like, I guess if you're going to join this town hall, which yeah, you should and you will, just come a little bit educated, reach out, and like learn. Like I don't know, I don't care if you have to go through like old Instagram posts, like do your part to come prepared, to listen, to be mindful, to not ask like inconsiderate questions or questions that may take up space in a very like, like timed space, because like, again, like Naomi said, no one is being compensated and you need to be aware of how you take up space. So just come prepared to bring something, or just listen. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And Eva, really quick, right before we give the stage to you, but like one great thing we have is access to our recordings. So like we can have access to the presentation that Ryan gave last year. Well, yeah, last year. Oh my God, last year. So yeah, we can definitely dig that up, send it out to y'all through Slack or whatever. So y'all can have that information. We can also do other research. Like I'm 100% down. We have knowledge at our disposal. We don't like Alicia said, like it's good to come in like already having a foundation, because don't expect people that, especially not getting paid, to teach you everything. Like, no, we're at a different time, y'all. Okay, and Eva, go ahead.
I wanted to ask like a follow-up or like a clarifying question. Like what do like some mother orgs even want us to do? And also like do we have any updates about like I know the April like the climate assessment of CPO. I think that's like relevant, especially when talking about USAC. I was wondering like if there has been any further conversation about developing like mechanisms to increase financial transparency about like where money to mother orgs go. I was just wondering if anyone knows like any updates about it.
So I'll answer what I can answer from that. For what the mother orgs want, that's the goal of my town hall, but I'm sure some people are involved heavily in the mother orgs in this room, so they can also talk a little bit about it. As for the CPO, I've been having discussions with Roy and other administrators since the beginning about like some things that we can do. I'll definitely involve y'all. I promise to involve y'all. We're still working through some ideas of what we can to increase transparency. So we can definitely talk about that either offline or just like our next meeting, because it's a whole kind of discussion. And a lot of y'all, I feel like, aren't as knowledgeable about CPO as I want y'all to be. So we can definitely chat about that. And Tara.
Yeah, I was just I don't know about the CPO updates. Still an oppressive space for some of us, that is an update. But in terms of what the MOs are looking for, just general support, like you even working with me for Black Student Lobby Day, like that's you reaching out to support ASU. So it can be like small things like that. It could be helping us with figuring out like internal conflicts. What Jonathan was saying could be something as big as just, I don't know, but just general support. Like I feel like the MOs and USAC last council at least were really separated, and we didn't really work hand in hand as a lot as we probably could have. But definitely MO support specifically through the projects. So like a lot of us have retention projects, like community service projects, access projects, and they do a lot, like both on campus and off campus. Like when Alicia is saying like we do the university's work, she did not. Like we do the university's work, and it's kind of crazy because USAC also does that. I feel like we would accomplish so much if we just worked together. I hope that answered your question, but yeah, just small things to kind of support what the mother orgs do for their respective communities.
Alicia?
Yeah, Eva, the CRC and also the retention court for Calmecac, what's it called? We passed a memorandum back in April, which essentially said our committee, the campus retention committee, continues to hold a no confidence in the CPO as our administrative designee. And that was because we really had to say that in the memorandum because of the guidepost climate assessment, which leads me to, well, Naomi said this, but I feel like USAC should pass a resolution about this, that seconds and backs up like essentially what this memorandum came to. But I feel like we should do that after talking to them and consulting and collaborating with them, obviously. So that's just what I wanted to say. But we did not agree with the guidepost climate assessment at all.
No, yeah, definitely we can chat about that. But yeah, so yeah, thank you everyone that was able to contribute ideas and for participating in the discussion. Definitely this chat doesn't stop here. We will continue this. But thank you, Tara, for bringing this up as a discussion item as well. I really do appreciate it. Definitely because I want to have a relationship with the MOs. That was one of my main goals. So yeah, and I think it's a goal of a lot of other folks in this room. So yeah, we will continue down to the introduction of the USAC budget. Okay, so I can't really flip this off. So our admin are going to do like a brief, like kind of intro to this. Jessica's ready. And then I'm going to talk about some things as well. But yeah, Jessica, you want to kick us off?
Cool. Yeah. So do I have screen share ability? I can pull up the budget so I can kind of talk through it. I know it's late. It's been a long meeting, so I apologize in advance. The goal is really just to like introduce the spreadsheet and kind of show you, point out few key different things in your budget so that you have time offline to digest it, look at it, form any questions you have. I'll also drop a link in the chat for a Calendly sign up if anybody is interested in actually scheduling a meeting to do more of a deep dive. Happy to do that as well in the next 2 weeks. Essentially, the timeline for this is it needs to be voted on and approved at your next council meeting on the 18th, so that it has enough time to then be presented to the finance committee of the board of directors. And their job is to basically review and approve it for fiscal soundness. So, you know, we have to have it finalized. Any adjustments that we need to make, we need to do that by the next time we meet. So, okay, let me share my screen. Okay. And feel free to like just jump in if you have any questions as I'm gonna like go through a couple different tabs. So if it's anything pressing, feel free to just like unmute and jump in. Otherwise, you know, I'll just point out some things and then we can like do some like Q&A at the end if there is any. But essentially this is your budget spreadsheet for the year. So what we're looking at is the original 23-24 budget. So that's current year. We also have included last year's budget and the 2-year prior budget, just so you can kind of see trends over time of what the fee collection is and sort of what the budget was for those council terms. So this top portion is basically your budgetable income, which is all of your funds that come from your student fees that are collected. So the way that we come up with all these numbers on the fee tab, we get enrollment projections from the university of how many students per quarter. And then we essentially see, you know, what the new fee is with any CPI adjustments that have been made. And then we multiply that out. So it'll give us essentially the output of what the fee is going to be. We also assess a percentage fee just to cover some of the overhead. Over time, you know, with inflation, with minimum wage rising, with scheduled salary adjustments per UCOP, the amount of budget needed to cover the overhead goes up a lot, and there's not much that you can do with in terms of your membership fee, since that's a fixed rate, $10 per student per quarter. So this administrative overhead fee kind of helps cover that so that you're not in a deficit, essentially. So 0.75% is assessed to any of your fees that are delegated, which means, you know, USAC is sending those fees on to another campus department to oversee the utilization. And then a 2% fee is assessed to the internal fees that stay within USAC, that USAC manages, your offices manage, funding bodies manage. And so that essentially helps to cover, you know, services like student government accounting, or to cover your staff stipends for some of your funding directors. So that's pretty much how we're getting the fees in this top portion. If you scroll down, the budgetable expense is the output of essentially what's going to be going into each office as a budget. So Campus Events Commission, CSC, CAC, you can see your offices in here. The numbers over here is just showing what the different fees are that roll into that office budget. And then, 9 of your offices don't have dedicated referenda fee income. So what we do there is we budget you $2,250 for a base budget to start the year, just so you have some funds to operate with. And then essentially the bottom line, anything that's remaining. So you have your income and then you have what gets budgeted. What's budgeted is a little bit less than your income. So then all of your remaining funds drop down to the bottom line in this SGOF, Student Government Operational Fund. So essentially what that is the remaining portion gets split amongst the 9 offices. So then in addition to the $2,250, you get $3,726 added. So you're starting off with, around $5,000 as a base budget for your office for, operating, for paying staff stipends if you need it. The overhead tab is really more detail of what's rolling into that number. So, on this first sheet, there's different formulas linked in here. You can kind of see where in the different tabs it pulls from, but your administrative overhead, which is here, this is more of the detail of how that's broken down. So we have officer stipends, maintenance and utilities. These are like essentially shared costs of running the building, of any maintenance required, changing light bulbs or servicing public spaces. It's a shared cost between all of the different entities of ASUCLA. So this is the portion that's budgeted for USAC to pay. You also have your J board, OSAC, finance committees. So these are your different boards and committees that you have stipends for. That's most of like the important sections. And then we also have tabs for each of your different committees as well. So if you want to see more detail on like what J board stipends are, FICOM, we have budget review and CS mini, e-board, and then your retreats and installation is essentially your budget to where if you want to have a retreat during the year, you have some of a budget to cover the cost of that. And then we'll also use this account to cover your installation ceremony for next term's incoming council. The other thing that I want to point out too, so for stipends, currently the way that your financial guidelines are written, it covers your stipends projected based on a 20-hour work week for California state minimum wage. So usually the schedule is California state minimum wage goes up every January 1st. So your stipends will have an adjustment where they get bumped up a little bit. Every stipend that USAC pays, whether it be a staff stipend or a chair of a funding body, they all proportionally go up. So one iteration that we did want to propose to you, which is I think the version that I have up right now, V2, essentially instead of basing your stipends on California state minimum wage, if you wanted to base your stipends on LA City minimum wage, which is a little bit higher of a rate, that's what these stipends are calculated at. So we ran the numbers with that in mind, just to kind of be able to bring a better, more meaningful stipend to, deal with the high cost of living and, the cost of just raising prices with everything. So the difference there is LA City's at $1,678 currently, and that goes up every July. California State is currently at $1,550. So it is, slightly higher, but essentially, it's all budgeted in, and the administrative overhead fee that we assess, the credit is listed in here. So this credit A and SS, it's built in there to help cover the cost of those stipends. So I think that's mostly everything. I'll stop and maybe see if there's any questions, or if Naomi, you wanted to bring up anything you want me to go over in more detail, or anything I'm missing.
Yeah, I just want to say there's not much we can change or switch around in the budget. So just keep that in mind. I highly recommend, if you do have questions, comments, concerns, definitely to take advantage of Jessica and Roy in these next 2 weeks before we vote, to schedule a one-on-one meeting. Last council, and Sarah can attest to this as well, one of the things that we did change was decreasing the e-board, our elections board, by their amount in the budget. And we got some feedback from y'all even when we got our, the reimbursement grant, and only being $75 when in previous years it was $200. So it's small things like that and how that affected what on our brewing cards, on our brewing cards instead of like an actual check. So stuff like that. It's like how that play out. Even at one of our USAC meetings last year, the chair had come and had said, like, due to that low budget, they weren't able to do some events that they wanted to do marketing wise for the elections. So it's interesting how some of those played out, but that's definitely something we can consider. I don't want to say there's much we can change. Honestly, a lot of these are kind of like set, but like definitely if we look at the number, if we go back to like what would be split between the 9 councils with referendum fees, can we go there?
So
so that $10,555 would be split between the 9 councils without referendum fees. I'm one of them too. I saw some of the chat comments. But that'd be $1,173 extra on top of the 2,000 and change. So there's that. But definitely just want to take a look. If anybody has any kind of quick questions, comments that they would like to add, definitely open to hearing them. Katie?
Quick question. What is the surplus withdrawal? It's like under the budgetable income.
So that's under the revised budget for last year, and that basically is whatever the surplus was from last year. So you don't have surplus withdrawal available currently because we don't know what the surplus will be until closer to like November or December. So it usually comes late in fall quarter. So that's what that is. It's basically surplus from last year, either the restricted surplus or the funds that were available to direct to different purposes at the direction of council. That's what those funds were from.
Thank you. And I thank you for that question. And definitely during surplus, we are definitely trying to get it earlier this time around. So when we got it literally towards the end, middle winter quarter, it didn't give us a lot of time to like put on some events. So that's for instance why we had to, we're restricting Tyra's surplus allocation, why we're restricting ASP service surplus allocation. But even with the surplus allocation, I, for instance, was able to get some funding for the commuter parking permit when my office originally had like around $4,000. So it's stuff like that. It kind of helps some of the smaller budget offices. Tyra?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask like how this is divided and like how these numbers are chosen and why it's so disproportionate, especially for the positions that are like representative positions. Like what's the historical precedence for that? And like, because honestly, this looks very inequitable and it's kind of sad that it's broken down in this way. But of course, like I'm guessing it's been like this for a while. So is there kind of like some kind of history behind that?
Yeah, so basically, most offices, or some offices, I should say, it's, the other ones that are not the 9, get fee referendum money that they direct. So under the fee tab, these are all essentially all of your referenda fees. Sorry, let me scroll over so you can actually see the categories. So like mandatory fees, entertainment fee, there's an AAC fee, CS mini fund, there's TGIF fee, brew and bash fee, hashtag UCLA wellness. These are all your mandatory student fees that are collected. And based on the referendum language, it directs that the fee needs to go to a particular purpose or overseen by a particular office. So in the total budget, essentially all of these fees collected, you'll see like up here in the top budgetable income, these are again those same fees and they're just numbered, right? So membership fee, entertainment fee, UCSA travel, TGIF fee, they're all numbered. And then the numbers kind of correspond down here as to what the fee makeup is for these offices. So like campus events, for example, have 4 different streams of income from the fees. CSC has different set of fees. Academic Affairs Commission has different set of fees. So essentially it's based on different historical referenda that have been passed. The language is all available on the USAC website if you ever wanted to see specifically a particular referenda or what it is meant to cover. But essentially, you know, the only real way to enable more funds available for various offices would be to essentially run a referendum fee for that purpose and then direct it to those offices, because the membership fee, which again, that's like one of your oldest fees, it's $10 per student per quarter. It's not adjusted to inflation. It's been the same since it was like passed many decades ago. That was kind of the fee that gave a budget to each of your offices. But over time, you know, inflation has just greatly eroded that fee. So it doesn't really cover much anymore. So that's kind of where we end up with trying to build in at least somewhat of a base budget, and then you get a little bit of additional from SCOF, but certainly, you know, hear you on that. It's definitely not enough to operate for a lot of the work and priorities you have.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Eva.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that you called on me. I was wondering where the there's like an EVP travel grant account. Like I know it's number, but I can't find it on this sheet at all. It's like number 1802. I was just wondering if you know like why it's not here, like what's happening with it by any chance.
Is the 1802, is that a number from like the SGA like budget report, but like your fund number or something?
Yeah, that's our like I think our like
Okay.
our code or something.
Okay, yeah, so it wouldn't really necessarily be present here. Most likely it's just rolled up into your office fee or your total office budget. Basically after this gets approved, phase 2 of budgeting is like we'll send a spreadsheet, like a budget breakdown sheet of where all of your funds are going to go. So again, like some offices that have multiple referenda that flow into it for different purposes, like if you have referenda for like, for example, like CAC has ARC funding that comes from a referenda. So we'll have a separate spreadsheet that'll further break down that detail. That'll be the next iteration after this portion gets passed.
Okay, so we'll see it there. It wasn't necessarily like cut then, right?
Yeah, no, nothing's been cut. Basically, it's just, you know, these are the income at the top is like essentially what the fee collection is going to be this year. I think it did like slightly go down because enrollment slightly dipped, but which you could see on the fee tab, but yeah, nothing ever gets cut, especially if it's like per referendum. The only way to change or adjust that would be the student body would have to put it on the ballot to vote to adjust or remove, or similar to how you would add a fee, it has to go through the voters.
Okay. And Katie?
Okay, so looking at the interest income that we get from the fees, I'm so confused on like what bank you're using or like how we're getting these numbers, because if you look, okay, so like let's look at like the 2023 to 2024 income, for example. The total is $947,310. And so if you were to get like say an average is like 2% and 2% interest, that would be a total of $18,946 that we should be getting for interest. And that's like it's like a normal interest percent is like 2% now. However, in order to get $1,400, that means that our interest rate is like 0.15%, which is quite a terrible interest rate. Do you know like where these numbers are coming from, like what bank we're going, if we can negotiate a better interest rate?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll try my best to kind of explain this. I think this is probably more a question for Roy and his much further experience into SGA. But essentially, that's an estimation. We bank through Bank of America, so it's a standard bank. But the thing is, with the way your accounting works, we never really have a ton of money just sitting in the bank, right? Because like the referendum gets collected by the university, and then it gets sent to ASUCLA to then disperse where it needs to go. We're always a couple quarters behind. So like, you know, we would receive summer and fall fees probably in like winter quarter. So there's never really that, like your total your total budgetable income is like your total that we're anticipating that you're going to have for all of the quarters of the academic year. That's not actually what's sitting in your bank account at one given time. Because, you know, with the funds that come in from the university are always like a couple quarters behind. And then once they come in, a lot of the money just gets dispersed straight out by, you know, your delegated fees that go to AAP, that go to CAPS, that go to the food closet, that go to all the different places. The amount of money that's actually just retained by USAC is very small in comparison. So that's why it's just an estimated number that we include in the budget, but it's not truly reflective of like whatever interest you would expect to receive from, you know, $1 million budget, because that's not actually what's in your bank account at any given time, if that makes sense. Hopefully I explained that well enough.
It kind of makes sense, like kind of looking at quarter to quarter. But yeah, I mean, I can email Roy, is that what you said? But just offhand, do you know the interest rate that we're getting?
I don't. I think it's just like a standard like checking account. Again, like it's not really like a savings. It's not really meant to be like an account where we're holding money, because the money is always flowing and like getting sent to its intended purpose. Like the fees collected in a given year are meant to be spent on that student body who paid that fee. So we're never like, we should really try. That's why we always really want to try to spend all the funds that come in, because that's the intended, you know, student body it's meant to benefit. But I think it's probably a pretty standard rate. But Roy definitely would know. If he doesn't know, we can always check in with SGA, because they are your primary accountants that oversee that. And like I said, it's just Bank of America account. And so USA has its own account, GSA has its own account. And all the funds, that's how we're able to kind of maintain a closed loop. So like, for example, whenever you get carryover or surplus come up, if you don't spend funds in a given year, they don't just disappear. They stay, we retain them, and then we're able to redirect them for other purposes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Quick things before we head to our next topic, but definitely implore people to schedule a meeting with Jessica and or Roy to kind of discuss things further. We can definitely chat about things offline as well, about specific things if like we do want to change election board things, and continue to talk about how the stipend, if we want to keep it on the California state level, or if we want to go to Los Angeles, which would raise it slightly higher, and not just for our stipends, but for like election board stipends, judicial board, and some other stipends that are also laid out in our bylaws. So yeah, I do know it's late. We have one more talk today. We're good. And then we'll also get the link for signing up for our meetings. Can you also put that in the Slack by any chance, Jessica? Just in case somebody loses it, or for folks that aren't here.
Yes, I will drop it in the Slack right now too.
Appreciate you. Okay, cool. Moving forward, I think we're going back to Tara. Sorry, I don't have the agenda. My internet's so slow. But we're going back to Tara. Awesome. Go ahead, and you have the stage.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I mentioned this like some other meetings ago, but I am an AAP student. I am specifically a McNair Scholar. For those who don't know, it is UCLA's most prestigious program, to my knowledge. It's a 2-year program. It basically has the mission of uplifting and empowering underrepresented students in education, basically preparing students to get to PhD programs, to be successful in said programs. UCLA is said to have the best program across the country. I think UCLA just says that sometimes, but it has taken on an oppressive form that I feel like USAC should be aware of. I've been in McNair my entire 2 years at UCLA. I've never known anything other than McNair, but I've just come into contact with people who are Mellon Mays scholars or like Research Revealed, Bunch Fellows, and they don't have the same experiences as I do. And so I guess that kind of is what made me aware of the oppressive nature. I have experienced oppression in McNair. Other people have experienced it. From my cohort, I've also heard like saddening things from people who are in the current cohort, who are in Naomi's cohort. And originally, I thought it was just issues that were pertinent to like anti-Black racism at UCLA, but it's coming from students across the cohort, meaning that it's just not a safe space for anybody at this point. And I'm particularly raising these concerns because the McNair cohorts from my cohort and in Naomi's cohort are Black and brown. And I just think it's really contradictory for UCLA administration, particularly AAP, given its history of being, dehumanizing for Black and brown students, to continue on in a program where their exact mission is to represent those said students. And just for like one specific example of that oppression, like one of the main qualities that McNair looks in for students is that they are low income. And students from my cohort and from the current cohort, I've had their stipends basically threatened to be taken away. And that's actually crazy considering McNair is kind of a full-time job in its own. So like, how can you recruit low-income students who are already marginalized into the program? They don't have any other means of, income, and you're going to threaten their stipend. Like, how are you just able to do that under the name of, McNair at one of the best institutions in the country? So I say this to say is that I think USAC should definitely be involved in this. I'm going to try and mobilize students from my cohort, from the current cohort, because it's kind of just crazy that we come to these spaces thinking that they're safe and they're not. They're actually kind of reinforcing the educational systems that they aim to fight against. And y'all don't have to say anything about it now if y'all don't want to. I just wanted to throw it out there just to make it kind of public that this is going on in AAP and that it has gone on for so long. And I'm just tired of like hearing about the abuse on Black and brown communities. So yeah, that's it for me.
Alicia?
I think we should, this is just a thought though, like we could write a letter in collab, like probably like in talks with these scholars, and maybe involve like the MOs these students belong to, and maybe write a letter to AAP, or if anything we could also just do it as USAC and have like a conversation with AAP administration about this. I just like to have somewhere to start. because they just can't keep getting away with doing that to you and to other students. But honestly, in any way that we can support, yeah, let it, we can just have a discussion about it, but if anyone else has any other ideas.
Yeah, I definitely think a letter would probably be the best bet, or honestly, just scheduling a meeting. Like at this point, I'm flabbergasted by the program. So especially as somebody that didn't receive my stipend from McNair until week 7 of spring quarter. It was a mess. It was a mess. So I definitely think we can go with the letter hour, just like bringing the cohort's perspective from the past 2 years, and just getting as much of their student voice in these conversations as well. I think is a great step in the right direction. But yeah, like Alicia said, there's no reason to be doing this to underrepresented minorities, especially trying to get their PhDs and just further themselves in education. But yeah, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was just gonna add like in support as well, just mainly because I was an AAP as well, and I did research rookies, and I never got my stipend, and I had to go like 3-4 times in person to ask what was going on, and they like really never worked on it, and I was like very dismissed. And I think it's like they pull this big argument of like financial aid and so on and so forth, and which I think is very exhausting at this point, because that's such an exhausted excuse of like, oh, like financial aid restricts how much we can give you. No, it doesn't. Let's be honest. Let's be real. The university can afford to give you the $500 or your stipend and so on and so forth. So I feel like honestly pulling from resource rookies as well, basically from any AAP program. And I think also I think it'll be fun to finally get on financial aid, because California just signed the for all of those who don't know, scholarship displacement is basically the policy of universities kind of like not giving you more money even though you had more scholarships and kind of displacing it. That's actually been made illegal this coming school year, thanks to the California Assembly bill. I don't know what number it is exactly, but I think we can kind of take on a role of like advocating for student needs and being like, hey, financial aid, so actually this isn't gonna fly. Like let's stop that. But yeah, I just want to put my 2 cents and fully put my support behind Tyra and anyone else who wants to tackle this on.
Oh yeah, and I will also say, kind of like going back to the transparency conversation with the organizations that USAC like student fees give money to. One of the ideas that kind of me and Roy and other administrators, well, just like advisors have been talking about, is like having members, like the people in power of these organizations, come to our USAC meetings to give reports that they used to do very, very much so in the past, as in to come to talk about some of the programs that they've actually been putting on for students, what the impact is actually having. So definitely we can sit down and have a conversation with these folks to really just kind of hold them accountable for what the work they should be doing and not harming students. But yeah, that was just, sorry, last minute thought that I had. But I definitely think for people, we can definitely form a task force on this to work on like drafting a letter or how we want to go about it. But definitely, Tyra said that was very surface level, so there is more. So kind of talking about that through, I think would be good. Okay, so yeah, we can definitely set up a task force for those that want to get involved on it. So yeah, we can do that. Okay. Any other comments before we wrap up for today?
Thank you guys for this 4-hour meeting.
Make it. You got me. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So with that, I think we are done for tonight. Okay, so we'll go ahead and join the meeting at 10:55 p.m. All right. Bye.